The entire tale kicks off in the plaza of the Andalusian Empire, where a girl is sprawled out, her hands and feet shackled by chains. A guy asks if the Great Master Senti is all set to sacrifice the Black Dragon 6, who seems a bit unsure if he can handle it all at once. The person next to him chimes in that the Black Dragon needs to be placed right under this dragon's heart. Actually, something went down last month. He foolishly attempted to swipe the main dragon from the public mountain only to get booted out and stir up quite the ruckus. It wasn't long before people started screaming as the massive black dragon came barreling in, aiming straight for the girl on the ground. He snatched up the girl who was the bait, and the mage shouted for everyone to start attacking, so the crowd kept firing away. But the dragon still managed to fly off. Later, the dragon landed with the girl and flopped down, grumbling, but ended up making some sounds that even surprised him. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that his words were mixing with some dragon noises, and he was taken aback when he noticed he had gigantic claws. When he fell, he felt pain until he caught a glimpse of himself in the water's reflection and realized he had turned into a dragon. He wondered if he had been sent to another reality and transformed into a dragon or something like that, and on top of that, a really bizarre dragon. Then he glanced to the side and spotted a girl, which made him anxious about whether she was all right. She didn't look too good at all. She seemed like a classic case of a sickly, pretty girl, and he pondered what she would think of a dragon's breath like his. That's when he suddenly got a notification welcoming him from the Plunder System, which was at his service. To his surprise, it wasn't just one but 3 systems that greeted him. Besides War and Plunder, the villain system and the transformation system were also at his disposal. The dragon was so impressed that he might actually be chosen for something legendary. The system was ready to kick things off with the fusion system. It was the ultimate system for unbeatable super evolution. He wondered what the evil dragon system could do. Apparently, the host didn't need to say a word. Special abilities could be activated just by winning over a special female NPC, and that was that. He could spend system points to remodel any part of his body, too. And the dragon was left wondering what that even meant. He questioned if this whole player and NPC thing was merging some game reality or something similar. He could click on the enemy's point to take them out and gain half the power of justice. And soon, the system noted he had plundered an SS class SE female NPC subway SETI. Thus, the system privileges weren't activated yet, and he could see the girl mumbling because she was cold lying on the ground. The protagonist took a moment to gather the books scattered around to read and try to figure out what was happening. It was still shocking that he was interested in this stuff, even when in his past life he was a guy named Sunayan. The dragon tried to let the girl rest on his tail, but she was still shivering as the classification was truly extraordinary. It seemed he really was the great chosen one. The system soon detected the SS rank NPC and was able to display the character panel. The girl was 18 years old, hungry, cold, and afflicted with a disease with only a few days left to live. Only 2 days remained until her life would slip away, and the protagonist was taken aback that her life could be tossed aside so quickly. As expected, there was no free lunch in any world, and he got anxious because the girl kept making those embarrassing sounds while sleeping, so he covered her with bare skin he found while scavenging the area. He hoped that would keep her warm. He gained 10 more favorability points. Wrapping her in a blanket boosted his favorability a little more. Things seemed pretty straightforward to fix. He asked the system for something to boost favorability, but the system just laughed at him and refused. The protagonist was furious because he had a body, he couldn't even move, was on the brink of death, and wondered how he could find food to earn favorability. He at least wanted a starter pack or something like that, and the system informed him that he actually made a valid point, so it issued a beginner starter pack with a 30-minute temporary recovery card. He should use the temporary recovery card to boost his strength temporarily, but it would leave him weak for an hour after the effect wore off. So after using the card, he needed to hightail it back home. The protagonist was a bit stunned by the kind of power he just received, but using the card was his only option at that moment since he was too weak to move. He told the system he wanted to activate the temporary recovery card. He received a notification confirming it was activated. At this point, he could only value his life. Once he left the cave, the protagonist approached a tree and realized that as a dragon, he couldn't just munch on grass or any random thing. He needed to hunt for some meat, otherwise he would starve. It didn't take long for him to gather a decent amount of meat, but he soon discovered it belonged to other creatures. A pack of level 3 magical beasts appeared to defend their turf. The wolves had a strong sense of territory. Apparently, he had stumbled upon their food stash. which is why they suddenly jumped out to protect it. Being a dragon was no walk in the park, but he couldn't shake off the nervousness and decided to just charge at the unexpected foes. It didn't take long for the protagonist to wipe out the monsters and return to the cave, radiating a terrifying aura that made the girl shiver in fear. Meanwhile, the protagonist kept wondering why she still hadn't woken up. She seemed really sick. But if she kept passing out, feeding her would be a challenge until she suddenly sprang up and yelled at the villain to back off. She attempted to attack him, but he simply brushed it off and popped an apple in her mouth, creating a hilarious moment. She spat out the apple, asking if he planned to eat her, and he thought to himself that he wouldn't do anything like that. In reality, from Anna's perspective, the great dragon was just roaring at her in a terrifying manner. It was so shocking that she fainted from fear, and he wanted to wake her up again, even though she had already lost consciousness. The protagonist asked what was wrong with Anna, and the system informed him that she had a high body temperature that could lead to fainting. The protagonist mentioned he had just taken down a silver moon wolf, so he should have points in the system. The system confirmed he had managed to kill 3 second-order silver moon wolves. They were just defending themselves, so the system points were halved. Now he had earned 30 system points, and they congratulated him for scoring his first system points. A system shop was now open. He needed to find something to cure the girl's illness, and the system analyzed his current state to determine the best option. It recommended that he use 10 system points for a special offer to exchange for the Chinese herbal medicine, Huanqin. Huanqin was a Chinese remedy used for high fever, and he wondered if the system store had items from Earth and his previous world. He asked the system to get the Huanqin for him, and soon the item materialized in his hands. Taking the medicine, he asked how to use it, but it seemed only he could make it work. He consumed the item and blew his breath onto Anna's face, which ended up affecting her. And the protagonist realized too late that he was feeling the effects of the temporary card's time limit. His body could no longer keep up. He felt incredibly heavy. Meanwhile, Anna woke up in a cozy spot feeling extremely thirsty. When she looked up, she saw the great black dragon soaring toward her, so she ducked down, crying in fear. A little later, she woke up tasting a bitter medicine in her mouth. This time, she found herself in the cave with the dragon nearby. Anna wondered if she had truly been saved by him, and the protagonist gained 20 more favorability points. The girl noticed that the dragon had also gathered fruits just for her, which made her smile because the dragon seemed quite kind. Consequently, the protagonist earned 40 more favorability points, and she approached to try to wake the dragon up. Anna grew worried because he wasn't moving, making him seem dead, and she wondered if it was due to the stab she inflicted earlier. She urged the dragon to recover, soon gently caressing him, and the system alerted the protagonist with a new notification. The favorability reached the requirement for the first stage. Congratulations on obtaining the Beginner Devouring skill with 2,000 points. Beginner Devouring was a skill that allowed him to eat to quickly restore his body and generate a certain amount of energy. However, the food intake would also feed it. Now, this skill was solidified. Sometime later, the protagonist woke up, feeling hungry, puzzled as to how he could feel that way since he had just eaten meat. When he finally woke up, it felt like he had dozed off and somehow gained a new skill. He was almost giddy, thinking he had pulled off something so easy just by luck. Still, every fiber of his being was practically screaming for food. He could hardly hold himself back. Glancing over, he spotted Anna fast asleep and briefly entertained the idea of using her as a snack. But he took a deep breath to steady himself. He couldn't eat her, especially since her favorability rating was at 90 points. What shocked him the most was realizing he had also racked up 90 favorability points with Anna. He wondered when that had happened. Did something go down while he was catching Z's? Maybe she was just blown away by his sheer awesomeness. He was big and mighty. She might have even developed a crush on him. But he snapped back to reality when he noticed her coughing up blood. Realizing that Anna had suddenly become very weak, the system explained that besides gaining abilities, conquering an NPC also granted him 2,000 system points. He had hit the basic threshold for body modifications, unlocking that feature. He figured he was partly to blame. He just had no clue what kind of illness she was dealing with. Using medicine to keep her alive wasn't exactly a long-term fix. The protagonist opened the system shop and was stunned to find various items from his original world, which was mind-blowing. After all, it took 10,000 points to buy anything. Only a lunatic would spend that much on such basic stuff. He wondered if the system shop could really be like this, while an unconscious girl was suffering right beside him. He even spotted a gorgeous dress that would look fantastic on her. He bought the dress to put on her. When Anna wore it, he had to turn his head away. He couldn't bear to look because dragons had barbs underneath. But before worrying about clothes, he needed to tackle her illness first and instructed the system to activate the body modification feature. There were external modifications, reinforced teeth for 400 points, iron scales for 400 points, and a general appearance modification for 10,000 points. Internal modifications could be categorized as blood vessels, heart muscles, facial features, and internal organs. The protagonist decided to kick things off by searching for modifications related to medical treatment, selecting an item that provided a basic understanding of certain conditions. This one was unique, and he opted for the eye modification with basic insight. The system announced that the modifications would commence immediately. He was warned that discomfort might occur during the process, so he shouldn't worry too much. When the changes began, he complained because the pain was intense and he was even scratching at his eyes. But with that, he could assess Anna's condition. Analyzing her twisted ankle and minor abrasions, he was amazed that she was still alive after all that. Suddenly, a group of people appeared at the cave entrance, claiming they had seen dragon breath not long ago. There must be one nearby. The group of black mercenaries showed up, but in the protagonist's eyes, they were just a bunch of weaklings. Among them was a level 21 knight named Wells and Selena, a level 18 fire mage. The protagonist realized these mercenaries were not there for a friendly chat or anything nice, so he instructed the system to modify his basic claws and teeth. Scales could also be upgraded. The modification would begin immediately and cost 1,000 system points. It didn't take long for his entire body to undergo a rapid transformation. When he emerged from the cave, the protagonist encountered the group of mercenaries, and they all watched him soaring through the skies. Wells shouted for everyone to prepare for battle, and Selena questioned if that black dragon was really the same one as before, since it looked so different. She warned everyone to be ready because something felt off, and Wells called her a coward for acting that way. He told everyone to disregard Selena's words. If she hadn't flubbed the binding spell in the previous encounter, maybe they could have captured the black dragon from the start. Selena was furious at his harsh words, while Wells simply ordered everyone to keep their eyes on the black dragon flying west. They needed to follow him. She was stunned, wondering why he was heading deeper into the forest toward the outer edge. She starts to wonder if the dragon's treasure might be in that direction. He could be trying to lead them off course to stay under the radar. The main character keeps soaring through the sky, grabbing everyone's attention before diving at the mercenaries and taking them on. His score just keeps climbing as he takes down each foe. As he charges at the dragon to finish it off, he's shocked to find that his attacks don't even leave a mark. The protagonist turns around laughing. He had been curious why his back was itching. It felt like fleas, but it was just the weak hits he was feeling. Wells was fuming, unable to wrap his head around how this was even possible, and the protagonist tells him to save those questions for his next life. It didn't take long for Wells to be taken down, and all the mercenaries bolted in panic because the Great Knight had been defeated. But the dragon wasn't about to let them slip away that easily. They were all going to become system points to boost his strength. The system congratulated the protagonist, even though a few managed to escape. Regardless, he racked up 150 system points from the fight. Still, it felt like someone was missing, and he turned around, recalling that the mage had stayed behind. When the protagonist returned to the cave, he found Selena casting healing magic on Anna, but she freaked out when she saw him rise. Selena stood up, warning the dragon to stay back. She was trying to save Anna's life, even though she was scared for her own. She cast a spell to keep the dragon at bay, but quickly ran out of energy. The protagonist didn't get what was going on, watching the protagonist squirm where he stood, and the dragon stuck due to the magic. Selena laughed right in his face. The dragon grew tired of toying with her and shattered the spell with one swipe, knocking Selena down with his paw and stopping her from casting any more spells. He asked who sent her there, but realized he was just growling and got worried since he should be able to speak human language now. He wanted to chat and asked the system how many points he'd need to tweak his vocal cords. The system replied that modifying his vocal cords would require 300 system points, and he currently had 280. The system also offered a loan service now. The loan came with an additional 50% interest and asked if he wanted to give it a shot. The protagonist froze in disbelief. After all, 50% was a hefty sum. It felt like he was being robbed in broad daylight. The system simply stated it couldn't perform actions that broke system laws, which made the dragon sigh. He figured this was the only option for now and asked the system to go ahead with the vocal cord modification. The modification was successfully completed. This loan, including principal and interest, would require repayment of 330 points to the system later. Setting that aside, the protagonist interrogated Selena to find out who sent her and what her mission was. The girl was taken aback that he could talk this whole time, but he kept insisting she spill the beans quickly because he was running low on patience. She replied that they were mercenaries hired by King Amlas to hunt the black dragon and provide nourishment for the prince of the kingdom. The protagonist asked what they meant by nourishment, and she explained there were rumors that Prince Alias had issues growing hair. Only by consuming the heart of a dragon and its private parts could he be cured. The protagonist couldn't believe what he had just heard. Meanwhile, Prince Amlas was stunned because they still hadn't tracked down the black dragon and questioned whether they were any good at all. Amlas asked his knight what Master Mason had said. The knight replied that Mason had transformed into a dragon. He inherited the original dragon's power at the 8th level and in just 1 month managed to cross the Jin Mountains. But using the tracking formation drained a lot of energy and magical materials. In fact, Mason said they would have to pay him more than before. Amlas was shocked because they had already given him 3,000 gold. Yet the old man still wanted even more, even after being knifed. Still, he ordered that they hand over another 500 gold. If that wasn't enough, then nothing else would be. Meanwhile, in the cave, the dragon kept the mage occupied for a while, focusing on learning more from the system. He could use the available healing potion of resistance. There was also the accelerated aura potion for meditation. The protagonist approached Selena asking if she could heal him, but she refused to heal a dragon. So the protagonist sighed and released Selena, and took her to where Anna was. A girl asked if he even realized that Anna was a princess. The dragon replied that he had no idea, even thinking that not just anyone could be an SSS rank NPC. Selena asked if he planned to rescue her, and the protagonist agreed because, after all, they were good friends with a favorability score of 90 points. He figured it should count for something, or at least that's what he wanted to believe, which left Selena stunned. But Anna eventually found out later that even Selena was SSS rank, and he felt relieved that he hadn't wasted his points on her at the start. Setting that aside, the protagonist asked how Anna was holding up. Selena said they shouldn't get their hopes up. She had taken so much damage that even a recovery potion wouldn't be nearly enough. He asked what else she might require, and Selena replied that a clean and tidy environment, plenty of medicine and food, and a skilled priest would be ideal. The protagonist questioned why they needed to find a priest, and she explained that she wasn't actually a professional mage specialized in healing. Nearby, Anna woke up asking them to stop bickering. She was thankful enough and expressed her gratitude to the dragon for trying to help. He felt relieved to see her awake. But he could sense that Anna was emotionally fragile. She needed some comfort at that moment. With that in mind, he moved closer, and Selena reminded him that just because Anna said she was okay didn't mean he could chow down on her. Ignoring Selena, he approached and ripped off the heavy chains from her body. It seemed they needed to find a new place to stay. He held them both and said that this spot was no longer safe. They should find a new shelter quickly. Anna agreed, and just like that, he gained 10 more favorability points, reaching a total of 100 points. The protagonist received a system notification letting him know he had hit 100 favorability points for the first time, and so he earned 1,000 system points as a reward. The three of them moved to another location where he could prepare some meat, and the girls were thrilled by the delicious aroma of the food. While they were busy eating, suddenly the protagonist froze upon seeing a group of demi-beasts watching them, sensing that something was off. But to his utter shock, the demi-beast approached and touched the dragon. Astonished that he was indeed a real dragon, he never thought he would see a living dragon in his entire life, and even bowed, declaring he would offer the Broken Fang tribe and become his servant. That was a man with a dog's head named Poor Curie of the 7th level. And just like that, the protagonist found himself in front of a tribe swearing loyalty to him. The protagonist said he really was weak. There was no point in having them as servants, and they couldn't even be true allies anyway. Porikuri responded with laughter, saying that even though they were weak, they could find a dragon's lair, mines, and scales just for him. They could even plan a glorious future for his wealth. But the dragon didn't understand any of it. They didn't seem worried about losing anything in the end. Everything would depend on the group's sincerity. But now he needed a spacious and dry dragon's lair, and asked if they could keep their promise by helping with that. Porikuri agreed with the words of his lord, and so the group headed toward a place where there was food in cluster houses. That was where the Broken Fang tribe lived, and the protagonist received a notification saying he was gaining favorability points from Anna and Selena. From that day forward, the Black Dragon intended to accept the tribe's loyalty, and the moment they accepted his protection, they would share in the legacy of the dragons. And in the name of the dragon, he vowed to return protection and stability to the tribe the group of beastmen celebrated. The protagonist asked if Portery wanted to become his familiar, and he agreed emotionally because he had dreamed of that his whole life. This made the dragon sigh. That ritual's sense of making him a familiar was complicated but necessary to forge their loyalty. He touched Porikuri's forehead with his own blood, and thus a stone appeared on his body, making him part of his servants. The dragon asked Porikuri what was going on with the rest of his tribe. He hadn't imagined there were so many kobolds in the group. The others said their masters should decide for them. Not long ago, the Cobalt tribe was attacked by a group of eatercaps. They led a horde of demonic spiders and ended up stealing the territory occupying the Cobalt's former mine. They led part of the tribe to escape and settle in this current cave. The main character was taken aback by the news. A mine meant cash, and cash meant he could snag some healing potions to help Anna feel better, even if just for a bit. Plus, he could even crash on a bed made of gold. So he asked Pori what kind of mine their tribe used to own and how many eatercaps were hanging around. Porikuri reported that it was a silver mine. There were 5 eatercaps, and they were pretty nasty by nature with a particular craving for brain matter. Eatercaps had a mouthpiece that looked like a flute. They used it to control their spiders, and there were tons of those little critters. The protagonist asked the system if he could check the status panel for the eatercaps. The system replied that it had no info available. He could even buy a book to learn about them. He was shocked to find out that such a ragged book cost 900 points. Talk about a total ripoff, which made him furious with the system. He even managed to get a refund. Anna was puzzled asking what was up, but he couldn't find the words to explain. Iniwagi grabbed the book and got the lowdown on the eatercaps, including their looks and details. They had a strong, upright torso, compound eyes, and sharp, venomous fangs. They were a wicked level 28 group. Each one was at level 3. These creatures-controlled spiders were scared of fire and had shells that offered some defense. They couldn't handle acid or water attacks. Just looking at them made the protagonist feel like he was losing his mind. His dragon's acid breath wouldn't do much against them. Close combat was risky, since he could get surrounded by their spider hordes. If he could tweak his dragon breath, maybe they'd stand a chance, and he pondered how to rack up system points. He checked and found he could unlock new abilities, but for 1,000 points, he could modify his dragon breath in all sorts of ways. So he asked Porikuri if there was a nearby human bandit camp, or maybe a group of black beast mercenaries or something. Porikuri nodded. There were actually 2 bandit groups nearby, but they were just blood lion mercenaries. Still, he hadn't heard of any black beast mercenaries. And the protagonist instructed him to gather half the Cobalt soldiers. They could head out together to the nearest bandit group. Hostile forces usually dropped more system points, and bandit groups were concentrated, not scattered, which was perfect, the ideal spot to farm system points. With that, he told his girls to stay in the Cobalt village since it was safer, and warned Selena not to run off under any circumstances. So he set off for the Silver Moon Forest toward the bandit camp, and soon about 3 wagons rolled into the village as their leader returned. The humans celebrated because they had triumphed in their raid. They cheered for their chief, who was quite powerful. They had scored big from that raid with their hundreds of comrades in the camp. They wouldn't have to stress for the rest of the month. Suddenly, the chief glanced to the side and spotted a group of men carrying a chest, claiming it was a gift for their chief. A man rushed in frantically, reporting that a black dragon was approaching. He had entered and was wrecking everything in sight. The protagonist stormed the camp and attacked until everyone was running and screaming for help. It was the black dragon closing in. Despite that, they were powerless since the dragon was flying too high, and they were caught in his aerial assault. They could barely see through the pain. Meanwhile, the protagonist was getting notifications that he was racking up more points thanks to the battle. In the end, they emerged victorious, and the Kobolds celebrated their grand win. They told him there were plenty of chests around. It must have been what was stolen. They confiscated everything they found, and the protagonist agreed it was indeed a fantastic haul. They should take it back to the lair for now. Inside the boxes, they managed to stash not just cash, but fruits and various important potions and food that had been left behind. But what really caught the dragon's eye was the transformation potion that was there. The low-level transformation potion was now in his possession. It allowed non-human beings to transform into their human form, inheriting 10% of their strength for 1 hour. With that, he could turn back into a human and return to Anna and the others in a more friendly form. He could even picture them being impressed by his new look. Selena might even apologize for her earlier rudeness. Still, if you were to calculate his age in dragon years, he'd basically be a little kid, which is just wild. Anyway, he decided to go for the potion. It would only last an hour, and he could switch back to his normal self once the effects faded. It didn't take long for him to transform into his human form, but Pork was left dumbfounded because the dragon had suddenly turned into a human, and the protagonist himself was baffled about where his clothes had vanished to after ending up so exposed. The system told him to hang tight. Because of the quick transformation, the system was still loading the new data. Before long, he was dressed properly. He looked almost as handsome as he did in his past life, at least. He was a bit anxious about the differences between humans and dragons, knowing some things just couldn't be done. But now everything was cool. 6 hours in human form should be plenty, and he asked poor Curry if everyone was ready to roll. The kobolds reported that once the chests were loaded, all the gear would be set to go. Now was the time. They could head back to the lair, and as expected, the potion's duration was super handy. He could switch between human and dragon whenever he wanted. Meanwhile, Selena was hanging out with Anna and thought it was the perfect chance to make a break for it. Anna asked where she was headed, and Selena paused, saying she just wanted to take a little stroll. She chuckled, asking where they should go. Their dragon hunt had flopped. The mercenary squad had been completely wiped out. Even the most basic support mage would have a better shot than her if she came back empty-handed like this. Still, Anna was too caught up with the little kobolds being born, not even thinking about escaping. Selena asked if she wasn't scared of all the evil dragons that had captured her. Anna replied that actually the dragon was pretty nice. That really threw the mage for a loop. It wasn't long before the kobolds spotted that the protagonist was back. Selena was shocked they returned so quickly. And of course, the protagonist showed up all cheerful to greet them. But when he noticed the village was filled with fainted kobolds, and Selena was barely standing, struggling to keep her eyes open, when he got closer, he asked what had happened, and she told him Anna had been snatched by the spider monsters. She apologized, saying it was all her fault. She had failed to protect Anna while he was gone. Even though that was her only job, Selena thought he would see her as completely useless. Whether in the mercenary group or anywhere else, she always seemed to mess things up. But he reassured her that it was all right. It was his fault for not getting back in time to protect the village. To his surprise, Selena's favorability shot up by 50 points because of that, and she had previously been at minus 30. Now she was at 20 points. He had successfully gained another NPC's favor. Her favorability had hit the first stage requirement. With that, the protagonist unlocked the ability Sage's Tears and was also rewarded with 2,000 system points. Then the dragon asked the system to trade for primary modification and primary accumulation of dragon breath. The exchange went through, and now he had spent his 2,000 system points. The modification was going to be pretty powerful, so he had to watch over his throat. Selena froze in shock when she saw the dragon suddenly coughing up blood, but he assured her he was fine. Then he instructed Port Curry to head for Itwin. After they dared to snatch Anna, it seemed they clearly didn't want to stick around in this world anymore. Deep in the Silver Forest, they followed the path Portickery led them down. Saying this was the territory of the spiders raised by the monsters, the mine up ahead was their stolen lair, and the protagonist urged them to hurry. They were going to attack the mine right now. No time to waste, but before the protagonist could take off, he suddenly found himself caught in a web filled with spiders. Unable to move, he unleashed his fire, taking out the giant spiders and racking up 300 system points. Then he stormed into the mine and demanded to know where the half-human girl they had just kidnapped was. As he moved forward, he shifted into his human form and pressed on until he found Anna trapped in the spider's web. Even a bit dazed, Anna caught the scent of the dragon and recognized him. It didn't take long for him to free her from the web. She thanked him for saving her, thinking that he actually looked pretty good in his human form too. The protagonist chuckled. After all, she meant a lot to him, so naturally he was going to save her. Just like that, her favorability shot up by 100 points. The system congratulated him for hitting the second stage of favorability and granted him the intermediate Devour ability. Special abilities could be solidified directly and were undergoing changes. He also scored 3,000 more system points. The intermediate Devour ability not only restores the body's condition, but also allows him to devour prey, boosting his strength and promoting physical growth regardless of age. He was ecstatic about racking up so many points. It was simply the result of sparing the lives of SS-ranked characters. They always rewarded him handsomely. It seemed that boosting favorability was way more effective than slaying monsters for experience points. But honestly, he was surprised that she recognized him right away. Anna chuckled, saying it didn't matter what form he took, she would always know it was him. Once home, the protagonist pointed out the potions for Anna to drink and recover from her illness. It was a healing potion made from herbs, and she needed to remember to drink it at the right times. Quickly, the potions also helped boost her favorability points. In fact, the protagonist felt that gaining just 1 point at a time was much slower than usual. Next to him, Selena got furious, questioning how he could keep making Anna drink potions like that. They were for healing, not meant to replace meals. He realized that mentioning sugar was actually a good idea, because maybe there were some sweets among the spoils of war that would make taking medicine easier. The protagonist started rummaging through the chests until he found one that looked particularly special. When he opened it, he was shocked to find a girl tied up and restrained inside. He asked what on earth that was, and Selena rushed over, questioning what he was doing, and slapped him for looking at the restrained girl with a creepy expression. Anna came over asking what was up with Selena, and she quickly ran to cover Anna's eyes, because kids shouldn't see stuff like that. Still, both girls ended up catching a glimpse of the girl tied up in the box, and he was just as confused. He ended up getting smacked as if he were the one who locked her in there. But if they didn't believe him, they could just ask the girl herself. When they removed this gag, the girl screamed, cursing that the bandits had captured her and demanding to be set free. Furious, Selena approached to calm the girl down, which only made the protagonist's favorability with Anna drop even more. He felt sad for being treated so unfairly and asked how poor Curry had explained things to them. Poor Curry replied that he had only done what the protagonist told him, loading the chests onto the cart and bringing them back. He had no idea there was a person inside, so it wasn't his fault. Meanwhile, at that moment, a powerful will spread throughout the world. A notification popped up for the protagonist warning that a world mission would commence, generating a beginner village within 3 days for the arrival of the Chosen One. The protagonist asked Selena if she saw anything, and she grumbled that all she saw was a damn dragon, which made him complain because that wasn't what he meant. But it didn't seem like she had noticed the alert. So he asked the system what it meant regarding the arrival of a Chosen One. The system replied that permission had been granted for the world with a mortal destiny. In other words, the game world would soon be realistically impacted by an incomprehensible winter. This gamble concerned the fate of this world. The result was that the protagonist learned about eliminating the players. He was taken aback because apparently the players were supposed to be resurrected individuals from another world entering the game. He had never heard of a world becoming a game in real life, and the system confirmed that the players actually hailed from the water blue star. It was a world with a highly developed gaming industry, much like his own homeland. The protagonist pondered the notion of a parallel world. If that were true, he didn't need to worry about them. They were part of his people anyway. But still, it was impossible to wipe out the players since they could all revive. The system mentioned that players could be resurrected, but each time they came back, the delay would double from the last time. The first resurrection would take 5 seconds, the second would take 10, the third would take 20, and so on until their time limit ran out. Still, the main character was taken aback because with that math, in less than 23 resurrections, the respawn time would stretch to a whole year. And even if the players kept at it, they would just get weaker with each resurrection. After a year, they would have to watch themselves die over and over, growing more and more frustrated with their own failures. It was hard to figure out why he was stuck in this situation. He wondered if the NPCs in this world could also be brought back to life, which left him stunned. The rules were downright ridiculous. It was totally unfair. Players could respawn endlessly, but NPCs had to risk their life in Sval's a double insect battle. This wasn't a game, it was just an unjust invasion. The system even agreed that it could be seen that way. But as defenders, he had a better starting point than most players. The power scales were balanced, they were just shaped differently, besides the losing side was destined for destruction. Hearing that left him shocked, and he asked why that was the case. Maybe it was because that fantasy world had been turned into a game from the get-go. He questioned whether they had even bothered to get the consent of those trapped in the game. They were just toying with lives as if they were deities. Anna realized a moment later that the protagonist had shifted back into his dragon form. He was annoyed because he transformed too quickly, wasting the potions for nothing. She told him not to be upset since they had figured out what happened. It was the bandits who caused it, and it wasn't his fault. The protagonist tried not to think she was dodging the subject, but more than that, he couldn't wrap his head around why she was wearing different clothes than usual. Anna explained that her clothes were ruined, and Selena found those outfits in a box, so she had to change. When he glanced at Selena, he realized she had made both herself and the other girl switch into something new. He never knew she had such peculiar tastes, and she replied that it was just a disguise after all. Only classification, not even that other girl's head's rank. The protagonist thought about converting her into points in the system right away. In fact, when he paused to look at her, he ended up deciding to keep her as a pet because that seemed like a better idea. He really liked that, but it felt a bit like cheating, just making them switch back to their normal clothes instantly. The more time went by, the more the protagonist felt this world might genuinely be a setup game. Since fate allowed him to see that information, it suggested he should use it to battle the players. With that in mind, he could no longer afford to relax. And that's how all the monsters around him ended up pledging loyalty to him. It would be smarter to create a simple map and integrate them. Plus, he planned to check out what the system had in store for him and his abilities. Now, he had the variant Dragon Breath Primeval hunting the Devouring Dragon's Power Sage's Tears, which was a passive ability and experience sharing. The 5-dimensional attributes could be enhanced through daily training or leveling up. Taking out natives didn't give the protagonist any experience. He would need to take down players to gain more of that power. However, players faced no such restrictions. And since there were more natives, players naturally had plenty of chances to level up. That was a resource with a good appearance. Manipulators on both sides wanted players and natives to battle to the death. The 5 dimensions could be improved through training. By all accounts, this could indeed be a turning point. Then the dragon called one of the kobolds to come closer. He did. The kobold named Huck came into his service. The protagonist checked Huck's information, but wasn't too surprised to see he was indeed quite weak. He ordered the kobold to run around the cave for half an hour without stopping, or else he would eat him. This forced him to run for that half hour before finally stopping, and the protagonist was impressed because it actually wasn't bad at all. It seemed that training really could boost the 5-dimensional attributes, and just then the girls returned after changing clothes. Shortly after, they prepared a map of the Silver Moon Forest. It was actually drawn by the previous Kobold Chief. Each of those monster communities had their own leaders, and the protagonist ordered Porker to gather all the kobolds. They could bring their stuff because he had something big planned for them. Later on in Silver Moon, the leaders of the 3rd level Fire Rabbit, Snake, Chicken, and Boar were taken down. He actually reached the 3 leaders and told them to chill out. He had no plans to munch on them anyway, knowing that this world was facing a serious crisis, which is why he urged the leaders to band together. The Silver Moon Forest was their turf, so they could gear up to fight and kick the enemy out. The others eventually gave in to the dragon leader's orders, agreeing to work under his command and become one big happy family. He was taken aback because that's how the sage's tears were put to use. It was almost like the speech of a true hero. Whatever a hero says, everyone buys into it without a second thought. Suddenly, he felt like he was caught up in a pyramid scheme. The rabbit leader asked the great dragon how they could take on the enemies, since after all, they were pretty weak monsters, and the dragon nodded in agreement. What they needed to do next was pretty straightforward. They would simply start training. The protagonist put all the monsters through some intense training to conquer the forest and defend their territory. They could only sit tight and see how their hard work paid off. He definitely aimed to win that bet and make it out alive. At another point, the humans found themselves stopping in the city, shocked to look up and see something that had popped up. A giant hardass appeared along with a news message announcing that the game's betting world was about to kick off. One of the folks called was Daniel A. Jason, and even he had no clue what was going on or what the term player was supposed to mean. But not just Daniel Brenny, and several others were pulled into the game where the system simply picked whoever it wanted. The first rule of this game was that players couldn't exit the game until they died. After death, players would enter the world square to wait for resurrection. They were supposed to complete missions because that would earn them invasion points. Points could be traded for items and daily necessities. They could also be used to buy resurrection time, so invasion points would always be up for grabs. The second rule of the game was that treasure chests would randomly pop up in the game world. These chests contained rewards like invasion points gear and other goodies. There were also spoils of war. The rewards could be traded as well as collected. Another rule stated that the time for the first and second resurrection was 5 seconds. Each time to return would double, so they needed to value their lives and tread carefully. In the Silver Moon Forest, the protagonist got a report saying that the results of the monster training were impressive. The gnolls and blackwater serpents near the forest had gathered under their command and were currently getting even stronger. He felt pretty satisfied until he was suddenly startled by a flood of notifications about the creation of a beginner village. The first rule was for players to descend to different areas of the world as beginners and settle into villages within 1 week for their own safety. During this period, anyone from the outside could be teleported inside the village. If it was a creature other than a player, it would be sent outside the village. Beginner Village number 1 of Sakura popped up on the Morgan Plains near the Silver Moon Forest. The protagonist was surprised too when a large golden chest appeared, and he realized he was the treasure guardian. When he opened it, however, there was nothing inside. This treasure chest might have just been a way to distribute the rewards, but rewards could only be claimed when a player opened it. It was bad enough that he couldn't be human anymore after transmigrating there, and now he was stuck guarding a treasure chest. So he started chatting with the Grey Wolf, Leader, the Snake, and all the others who had joined him. They needed to search for those chests in the forest and bring them all to him. And he ordered poor Curry to gather all the poison bombs, traps, and other stuff they, as kobolds, had made. The protagonist asked the system if there was such a thing as a world map. The world map had been updated after the players arrived. Unlocking it required 10 system points. He unlocked it after realizing it was a steal, and he sighed because it really was an unfair war. Although players were weak at the start, they had the upper hand in numbers, and now they had 7 extra days of completely safe development time. But based on his years of gaming experience, newbie players had a major flaw. They were way too curious. It didn't take long for all the treasure chests to be gathered up, and he commanded that they all be opened and shared out. They could set up poison traps, bombs, and other nasty surprises separately, then stash the treasure chests in the bushes nearby. They needed to hide them really well and keep it subtle. Haruri wondered why that was necessary, and he explained that if their human buddies came over, they should definitely roll out the red carpet. And of course, he'd be on guard duty for the real treasure chest this time, ready to do his monster thing. His monster. Meanwhile, over on the Morgan Plains player, Daniel Jason was grinding away, racking up resources. There was the world map, the forum, team formations, and sensory adjustments, the mission system, and a bunch of other stuff. But there was no button to log out. Everything felt way too real. There really was another world that had become a game. At the same time in the Dragon's Lair, Selena was honing her magic skills while the other girl, who was just hanging around, kept blaming herself for running off with Blaze. That guy sold her out to bandits just to save his own skin. She never wanted to see him again. Seeing the girl's rage, the protagonist thought that people from those days were all pretty scary. He couldn't even fathom how someone could have such a fierce look in her eyes. He hoped Anna would never turn out like them, and he kept giving her medicine so she'd heal up fast. Anna always expressed her gratitude for the potions, and her affection points kept climbing. It wasn't long before he got word that a hero had popped up in the strange barrier that had appeared, and the protagonist let out a sinister chuckle. Looks like someone was itching to dive into that other world. Meanwhile, back on the Morgan Plains, players could hardly believe how easy it was to level up. They even built a house once they hit level 5. Taking down a few small monsters for practice wouldn't hurt. But still, leaving the starter village felt a bit risky, and one of them suggested they head back. Another player grumbled that they were babysitting that coward because they cared too much about him. Otherwise, after 7 days, he wouldn't even make it on his own. He'd be begging to tag along later, and they might not even let him. Another player chimed in, saying as long as they had a piece of meat, he could at least get the bone. The cowardly player pointed out that there was a chest nearby, and the other two got pumped because they had stumbled upon treasure. But it turned out that all the chests they found only brought them trouble, and they never understood why they were filled with junk. Eventually, all the players got split up, and one of them ended up getting taken out by the protagonist just from being startled. Taking down a human player earned 10 system points. He was shocked at how weak they were, and it wasn't long before the cowardly player was found and taken hostage. The protagonist asked who he was and why they were trespassing in his territory. The player stammered that they were adventurers and it was their first time there. He shook with fear, saying they were just passing through and didn't want to cause any trouble. But the dragon himself didn't buy it, even though he had seen them using magic and attacking others just to clear their way. Then the player remembered he had the speed potion. The shop had sold it and he could use it to make a getaway. The player quickly bought the speed potion, spending 200 points, and the kobold pointed at the guy who suddenly bolted. The protagonist said he knew, but he could let him go. 7 days was plenty of time for the players to build up. Meanwhile, one of the lost players was wandering alone through the forest, clueless about any of this. That's when he stumbled upon a silver treasure chest and got pretty lucky. But unfortunately, he didn't have the key to open it. The system asked if he wanted to unlock it by spending 1,000 points to buy the key. The player was taken aback because that was way too pricey. In other games, taking down the treasure guardian would drop a key. And that's when he spotted the level 3 fire rabbit leader. It was just a rabbit and should be easy enough to handle. If he could sneak up on it and strike first, he might just win. He geared up to take down the little rabbit, but the player himself ended up taking a full punch from the rabbit. The giant rabbit questioned whether he was a smart aleck trying to snag the treasure chest, causing the player to back off in fright. He couldn't help but be amazed at how a level 3 rabbit could pack such a punch. That situation was anything but scientific, and he was at a loss for whether to call for backup or not. The rabbit urged him to open the chest, and he might think about letting him off the hook. With no other options, he decided to pop it open. So he forked over 1,000 points to unlock it and receive the key. But he never saw it coming that opening the chest would trigger a bomb to explode right in his face. Meanwhile, the humans were wrapping up their house construction. They successfully finished the houses and racked up invasion points for their efforts. They also built a tower that netted them 1,000 points. Jason was just about done setting up the wall to secure the area when he spotted an adventurer sprinting back. He asked what was going on, and the panicked adventurer, with tears in his eyes, claimed he saw a dragon, and everyone needed to run for their lives. Jason inquired about the dragon's location, and the others chuckled. After all, it had to be just an exaggerating kid, since this was a starter village. There was no way a dragon could be lurking around, but the terrified adventurer pointed towards the forest, insisting it was true. One of the adventurers had been taken out on the spot by it. He had only managed to escape after downing a speed potion. Jason remarked that if there really was a dragon, they wouldn't last long there. They needed to gather the wood and stone from the houses to build towers and walls for defense against the impending attack. The girl next to him felt a pang of sadness because she would have to part with the house she had just constructed. Meanwhile, Selena and the other girl were feeling bored. The protagonist asked what was bothering them, and Anna replied that Selena was sulking because her magic was on the fritz. Evelyn, the other girl, expressed a desire to take someone out. This caught the protagonist off guard, and he wondered how someone could say that with a grin. Anna must have really been tainted by darkness to say such things with that innocent look on her face. The protagonist received notifications that one of his followers had taken out a player, earning him 10 system points. Soon, Porkuri showed up announcing they had gathered all the treasure chests. They found a variety of items inside when they opened them. Among the loot, there were things like a book and parts of items to forge new materials. But what really caught the dragon's eye was the blueprint for a tower, something that piqued their interest. Apparently, it couldn't be utilized. He wondered if only human players could make use of it, or if there were other stipulations. Selena became intrigued by the ice skill book and approached the protagonist, asking him to hand over that magic book. Sun eventually agreed, and Selena was puzzled as to why he kept staring at her with such a dazed expression. In any case, he would lend her the book for a bit, and even so, the protagonist noticed that his favorability with her had gone up a notch. Later, Sunsei received a notification indicating that he was in a newly opened area placing a blueprint. He could confirm the vacant spot to start constructing a tower using the blueprint he had on him. As Sunayan had anticipated, even though that power couldn't be utilized inside his cave and near the tribe, he could still build outside. He saw only an empty simulation construction box reflected and had to focus to find a suitable location to set it up. Building a flaming arrow tower required 10 tons of stone, 3 tons of wood, 20 workers, 5 kilograms of food, and 12 hours of construction time. The available worker races included humans with a 20% boost in construction efficiency, kobolds with a 20% defense in construction. There were also goblins with a 20% increased mutation rate in construction, and dwarves with all construction attributes boosted by 10%. The host needed to provide the workers. Construction would kick off automatically once the workers entered the foundation. After the construction was finished, the memories related to the workers would be wiped clean and they would be sent back. And seeing that, Sunayan pondered if he really had to supply the workers, and quickly realized when Porkuri showed up after climbing up there, he ordered the kobold to head down now and find 20 strong kobolds. He was in the process of building that flaming arrow tower right now. But when he noticed poor Kori had passed out, Sunayan realized that maybe he had pushed himself a bit too hard. In fact, the day carried on just like any other. As night fell, he noticed that Anna and the others should be catching some Z's. When he got back, he found the girls in a deep slumber. Only Anna was whimpering, calling out for her parents and telling the demons to scram. Sunny couldn't help but wonder about those demons. If the monster encyclopedia was on point, demons had been wiped out 1,500 years ago. So how were there still demons lurking around in her timeline? Even though she was scared, a woman crept up from behind and covered her mouth, urging her to stay quiet so they could make a clean getaway. The older sister tucked Anna away in the wardrobe, telling her to stay put no matter what and not to come out for anything. But later, that same sister got attacked right in front of her, triggering Anna's powers to awaken. Meanwhile, the protagonist pondered if all of this was just part of her nightmare and the illness that always had her feeling under the weather. After days of chugging herbs and potions, her health bar finally turned green after what felt like forever. But no matter what meds were thrown at her, Anna's remaining lifespan was stuck at 63 days with no sign of budging. Her status read that she was suffering from a serious illness and would kick the bucket in 63 days. He soon started to wonder if it could be heart failure. Just then, Anna jolted awake, but in that instant she lunged at the protagonist, who stumbled back in shock. At the same time, the other two girls woke up confused about why she was acting up in the middle of the night. The protagonist then explained that Anna was actually gone, prompting the three of them to dash out in search of her. It didn't take long before they stumbled upon the depths of the Silver Moon Swamp, where Anna was locked in a fierce battle with a monster. Her health bar was full but flashing red, and he was taken aback to see it was a level 2 stone-helmeted giant crocodile. The Swamp King was getting trampled like a bug. Just as Anna noticed, she fainted, and the dragon swooped in to save her before she could be gobbled up by the crocodile. On the ground, they realized Anna had truly passed out and was stealthily attacked from behind, so they had to act fast. That guy had some seriously tough skin. In the swamp, his dragon breath couldn't unleash its full force, so Sunayan told the system he wanted to upgrade to high-grade scale armor resistance, high-grade hardened claws and teeth, and an underwater breathable air sac. The system lamented that the upgrade would cost 10,000 system points, and he was short on cash for it. He agreed, and the system granted his wish after giving him a loan with an extra 50% interest. Nian got annoyed because the system was dragging its feet, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. The system warned that the upgrade could cause internal pain. Seeing the protagonist dive underwater, Selena rushed to check if he was still alive down there. She even asked if she could keep the ice skill book for herself, but just then Sunayan showed up, sending the crocodile flying. With his new powers, he took the crocodile down in an instant, to the point where Selena was even tempted to chow down on the charred meat. In the end, the three of them feasted, and the system acknowledged that Sunayan had devoured a giant crocodile. His body was ramping up its recovery speed. Soon, Sunayan stumbled upon a low-level magic attribute core. He was blown away to find it. He wondered if a monster could really condense such a magic core, and maybe that was why Anna had ventured so far out there. He also noticed that her health bar had dropped back down to low, just like at the beginning, and he asked the system if it had any clue about Anna's illness. But since there was no reply, he realized he really needed to figure out what disease was plaguing Anna and why she had suddenly gone berserk with such immense power. Then it hit him. He remembered hearing about priests. So Nian asked Selena if she knew where to find a powerful priest, and she replied she wasn't sure, but had been traveling with a group of mercenaries. They only picked up some potions and carried them around, so that kind of intel was beyond her reach. Then Evelyn chimed in, saying she knew where a priest lived right inside the kingdom of Unreus itself. But if he planned to head into the city, he'd end up in hot water. After all, bounty hunters were crawling all over the city now. Sunayan got it. That made sense, but he still had 6 transformation vials, enough to keep his human form for about half a day. As long as he timed it right, he should be in the clear. With his new powers, he took down the crocodile in no time, to the point where Selena was even interested in the charred meat. In the end, the three of them feasted, and the system recognized that Sunayan had devoured a giant crocodile. His body was ramping up its recovery speed. Soon, Sunayan stumbled upon a low-level magic attribute core. He was blown away to find it. He wondered if a monster could really condense such a magic core, and maybe that was why Anna had ventured so far out there. He also noticed that her health bar had dropped back down to low, just like at the beginning, and he asked the system if it had any clue about Anna's illness. But since there was no reply, he realized he really needed to figure out what disease was plaguing Anna and why she had suddenly gone berserk with such immense power. And then he remembered hearing about priests. So Nyan asked Selena if she knew where to find a powerful priest, and she replied she wasn't sure, but had been traveling with a group of mercenaries. They only picked up some potions and carried them around, so that kind of intel was beyond her reach. Then Evelyn chimed in, saying she knew where a priest lived right inside the kingdom of Onrius itself, but if he planned to head into the city, he'd end up in hot water. After all, bounty hunters were crawling all over the city now. Sunayan got it. That made sense. But he still had 6 transformation vials. It seemed like whether you were a human or a monster, if you were male, you were pretty much the same. At least that's what Evelyn thought. She wouldn't hesitate to ditch the other part when things got tough in pursuing her life goals, but Sunayan was curious why she was still hanging around when she should be rushing so they could head out together. They all took off, and he quickly noticed that his popularity had shot up. It must have been thanks to his epic battle skills. But seriously, 300 points, that was way too little. Sun was always griping about how the system was constantly robbing him of his points, just to mess with him. The system snatched those 300 points to knock off his loan. He still owed 9,000 points to clear up. Subneon had to hold off until he paid off those debts from that other world. Life under capitalism was no walk in the park. Outside the royal city of Onrius, the dragon showed up carrying Anna, and they were all set to continue their search. In the royal city of Andreas, where everyone worshipped the arrival of the great and fearless knight Blazer, it was actually quite a sight. They said Blaze took out an entire gang of bandits all by himself and even lopped off their leader's head, making him a hit with the crowd. They also heard he was on his way to Lyria with the great mage Mason. Sunayan couldn't help but wonder if that gang of bandits was the same one he had dealt with. It was wild that Blaze was taking credit for something he hadn't even done. He even claimed he had taken down a dragon. If Sunayan wasn't busy with something else right now, he would have had him executed just to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, the protagonist kept heading toward the priest's house, following Evelyn's directions. The priest's name was Rogue. He was in a wooden house west of the royal city, right by a tree with white flowers. Evelyn didn't plan on going with them to the city, so she just passed the info along for Sunayan to follow. He knocked on the door, asking if Rogue was home, and Sunsen started to worry when there was no response. Maybe he was too old to hear. The protagonist just kicked the door open to get in. On the other side, Barbara, the intern, fell to the floor in shock. She apologized, saying they were looking for Rogue, and Barbara quickly got up, saying it was all good. The cost to fix the broken door would be 50 silver coins, which still made the protagonist chuckle a bit. She introduced herself as Barbara and asked if he wanted to see the professor, to which he replied that he was looking for Rogue to start a treatment. Then Barbara said that, unfortunately, the professor had gone on a trip because he couldn't cure Prince Amless's impotence. The protagonist asked if she knew where he went or when he would be back, and she said she didn't really know about that. And that's when Barbara spotted Anna and was enchanted, wanting to know if she was an ethereal being, impressed by how soft her ears were and how adorable she looked. But Barbara could instantly tell that Anna was sick and on the verge of death. Sunayan was impressed and asked if she was also a priestess, and she laughed, saying that although she was an internal priestess, she could still treat illnesses in her own way. He asked if she could figure out what was wrong with Anna. She had suddenly gone crazy the night before and then fell into a coma. Barbara guided them to lay her down on the treatment table first. Then she approached to start examining Anna, and Sunsen didn't quite get if that was really how priests treated illnesses. Now he could see why Amless's condition hadn't been cured. Then Barbara found what she was looking for and said that Anna had been hit by a brutal curse. The source of the curse was in her heart, and the other symptoms were just offshoots of it. Plus, that curse was extremely powerful. It would drain all the strength from the cursed person and, when triggered, send them into a frenzy. Subneon asked if once her body got a bit better, she could end up going berserk again, which would drain all her life force. Barbara agreed because she could see it that way, but unfortunately she couldn't cure Anna in her current state. She could temporarily treat the symptoms, but Sunshin needed to know that if she built up a resistance to the medications, her body would collapse. It would be like falling off a cliff. But there were 2 ways to break the curse. The first method was to end the curse by taking out the person who cast it. The second was to remove the injury by swapping out the cursed heart. Ideally, they should use a dragon's heart. Sunshin was taken aback because Barbara figured it out so fast. It was almost like she had a dog's nose for sniffing out his true identity, even though he was trying to hide his looks. The protagonist chuckled, asking what was so special about a dragon's heart anyway. After all, that was a tricky item to track down. Maybe there was another way to treat this. Just then, Barbara mentioned that unless he could find the legendary Great Spiritual Spring and take a dip in it, that might help delay the curse. But the Great Spiritual Spring had dried up, where he could head to the Winter Empire on the northern continent, where high-ranking priests could perform a purification ritual. However, Barbara worried that Anna might not have enough time to make it there. That's when she remembered something. He could seek out the witches. They always had all sorts of bizarre and amazing methods for treating patients, but their locations were usually a mystery. She only knew they had shown up in Ulster before. The protagonist asked about that since it was the first he had heard of it, unsure if something like that could even work. He suggested that Barbara could use healing magic to help her recover first, and then they could figure out the rest later. Barbara agreed, asking him to hold on for a moment, then turned around while Sun-san asked what she was looking for. She returned with a beginner's guide to basic healing, saying to relax, because everyone has to start somewhere. There's no need to be too anxious. Even so, Sunayan couldn't understand why she kept saying those things, as if she needed to remind herself. Then Barbara cast a spell on Anna and she woke up. He felt relieved to see she seemed all right, and Anna asked where they were. He told her they were in the city of Amlos. She had fainted out of nowhere, so he brought her to see a doctor. Barbara laughed when she realized she was right about him being a dragon, and that the girl might be the one who had been kidnapped a few days ago by the black dragons. So he asked what the big deal was, and Barbara reassured him that he didn't need to worry, because she had no plans to report him. As a priestess, she would help anyone in need of healing. Right now, she was exploring external healing magic. Heart transplants could be done even without magic, and she even showed up with a cut on her hand while suggesting the idea. She could offer a 20% discount that he might want to consider. Soon, Nayan grew concerned because it sounded a lot like modern surgery, and he replied that it wasn't necessary. Maybe he could find another way to solve this while still helping the patient in need. Anna didn't understand anything about the heart transplant, but Sunayan took her outside while Barbara stayed busy. Still, he was a bit shocked because she wanted to perform surgery while still flipping through the book on basic healing spells. Outside the royal city of Onrias, the protagonist walked with Anna, asking what was bothering her. Maybe she was still feeling off in some way. Anna asked if the illness she had was incurable, and Sunayan replied that it was just a curse. In the name of the dragon, he vowed to make her better as soon as possible, and she was touched that Sunny made such a promise for her. Anna reminded him never to promise to save her at the cost of his own life, and he assured her he understood, even though there was no need to worry because he would find a way to break the curse. That's when Sunayan suddenly got a notification from an NPC. A female NPC had sent him a summoning invitation, and the system asked how he wanted to respond. Meanwhile, inside the National Temple, the Sen NPC was performing a blessing ritual for the great goddess. Despite that, Sunayan received no further replies. Although they wanted to check it out, there were more pressing matters to deal with. Outside the Dragon's Nest at the Flaming Arrow construction site, the Cobalt tribe had gathered after finding Sunayan. They reported that the tower was nearly finished. He acknowledged that the efficiency was pretty impressive after all. Goblins were true whizzes when it came to construction. It looked like 4 more towers could be added to the schedule. The protagonist could see through the system the details of the first-level towers. They could receive upgrades with plenty of points to be added. It was fully automatic, firing just 1 arrow every 10 seconds. It was quite slow, so they could first test the power of the Flaming Arrow Tower. Sunny instructed Portakuri to take aim at the stone wall, and they launched a flame arrow to test its power. He was blown away by the destruction it caused. A single flame arrow had wreaked that much havoc. He wondered if this was some sort of magic for beginners. No surprise, the attack speed was sluggish with those massive critical hits. Since construction workers were a different breed, the outcomes were bound to vary. Studian pondered if different monsters would yield similar results when operating it, so he commanded Porikuri to gather 20 of those fiery rabbits. He wanted to run an experiment and asked the rabbit leader if he and his fiery crew could jump in and give it a whirl. Sunayan felt like things were finally falling into place. It appeared that the tower's attacks could adapt based on the creature using them and their summoning abilities. With these towers, guarding the dragon's lair was a piece of cake. The only hiccup was that they needed to boost the range and attack speed. He inquired with the system about what it would take to upgrade the Flaming Arrow Tower. The system responded that upgrading the Flaming Arrow Tower required 10 magic beast cores specifically from fire-type beasts of the 3rd tier. This was a low-grade magic core that could be snagged by taking down the stone-armored crocodile in the Silver Moon Swamp near the mountains. It seemed finding that many third-tier magic beasts in the Silver Moon Forest was going to be a challenge. The mountains were likely the only place to look. So Neon decided to scout the Silver Moon Mountains, and soon Anna appeared saying Evelyn and Selena were at it again. The protagonist could only chuckle at the thought of their antics. Anna urged him to snap out of it. If he didn't intervene, the dragon's lair would be toast. Neon had completely spaced that both of them were powerful mages and dashed off to break up the fight, suggesting they take it outside if they wanted to brawl. Since they wouldn't back down, Sun Seon transformed into a dragon to separate them, and Anna mentioned they were squabbling over the ice mage's skills. Selena couldn't grasp it, but Evelyn picked it up just by watching once, so they dove right into a brawl. Sunshine remarked that it was ridiculous to fight over such a trivial issue and that in his territory they should abide by his rules. If it happened again, he suggested they at least duke it out without magic, but neither of them was in the mood for games. Alone, Selena was fuming because she felt inadequate, not understanding why she couldn't master something like that, and she didn't want to feel useless. She kept attacking so fiercely that a piece flew off and smacked him on the head. He grumbled when Selena pointed out that he was the one who told her to go out and fight. He said it was just a silly spat. There was no reason to get so worked up that she was out in the middle of the night punching trees. She could have at least let others catch some Z's. Selma admitted she was feeling worthless and said if none of the usual routes worked, she could try one that no one had dared to take before. This left her puzzled, and he quipped that, given her aggressive nature, dark magic might be her calling. Selena shot back, "Dark magic is considered heretical in the wizarding world. It definitely isn't for me." The protagonist's eyes widened because she actually had a bit of a heretic vibe, but still, Selena appreciated that he chased after her and cared. He racked up 50 more favorability points with her. Meanwhile, time passed in the Silver Moon Forest's intermediate layer, where a group of hidden girls spotted some plump fire rabbits that caught their eye. They were itching to feast on them. They could bet their meat was succulent, and the big gold chains around their necks were also something they coveted. They had no idea such hefty fire rabbits could exist in that forest in the first place. Those rabbits usually didn't eat and drink so lavishly, and they were even sporting collars, regardless of how odd they were. They stood no chance against the bird demon race. They had heard whispers of a dragon lurking in this forest. Everyone needed to tread carefully. She would count to 3, and then they would all pounce together. But just as they lunged at the rabbits, believing they could pull off a successful ambush, they froze in their tracks. The rabbits revealed their true power, and the girls were swiftly overwhelmed by each of their attacks. They were no match for them. The rabbits showed their true colors as super powerful beings, and the girls were left battered by their relentless attacks. Defeating them was out of the question. It didn't take long for the trio to get caught and dragged to the dragon's lair. Stmayan questioned if they were the ones who had attacked his familiars. They quickly explained that they didn't mean to offend him. They were just really hungry. A few days back, a gang of hawk eagles swooped in from the other side of the Silver Moon Forest and raided the nests in the Silver Moon Mountains. They snatched foodstone sheep and even took lives from their tribe, which piqued his curiosity. Apparently, there was another rookie village on the other side of the Silver Moon Forest, and they pleaded with him to help them reclaim their home and rescue their people. Hana, the leader of the bird demons, vowed she would gladly give her life and her tribe to serve the great dragon along with their stone sheep. Now, Sunsei could see where they were coming from, but he wondered why they specifically targeted the fire rabbits. Hana was the bird demon's leader at level 17. She had some unique skills like flying and a melodious singing voice. Plus, the old Six had a knack for reconnaissance, and her voice could confuse players. Sunsei then marked her forehead and accepted her request, officially making her and her tribe part of his crew. Anna, noticing that the protagonist planned to head to the Silver Moon, chimed in that they all wanted to tag along too. He turned them down, explaining they weren't just out for a leisurely stroll, they were going to fight. Anna insisted she could help, and Selena and Evelyn backed her up, saying they could do the same. Suman wondered if they all turned out this way after everything that happened. He advised the others that if anyone entered the forest while he was gone, they should carry on as usual and could leave the box in an accessible spot. They all flew to the location of the demon's nest, and Hannah warned that the beasts inside were incredibly fierce and clever, so he should tread carefully. The protagonist began to regret bringing Anna along, especially when he caught a whiff of a strong blood scent. It was dangerous inside, so Sunsei told Anna to wait outside for him. Hana should stay with Anna to keep her safe, while he ventured into the cave where he found several level 28 hawk beasts lurking. He could hardly believe that so many third-level magical beasts were hanging out there in the Silver Forest. No wonder the bird demons had been driven into hiding. Even though their strength was lower, he couldn't handle their sheer numbers. Maybe he should consider bringing more backup next time. But before he could make a move, the beast spotted him and charged. With no chance to escape, he decided to focus on the fight. After taking down the creatures, the system congratulated him for snagging 23 fire magic cores and 345 system points. It seemed the magical beasts had already condensed their magic cores within them, which could come in handy. That's when he noticed one beast still kicking. It was a mutant hawk demon notable for its massive size. Although its size slowed it down, it packed a punch, making it tough to take down. The two engaged in battle and ended up with injuries. As expected, it was surprisingly quick. He heard Anna shouting for him to be careful, just as he got hit by its wings, causing him to fall before he could rejoin the fight. Anna, worried about the protagonist, asked Hana to check on him, and they rushed over to Sunsei. Anna ran to see if he was okay and why he was bleeding so much, even tearing up, hoping he wouldn't die. Sunsei quickly got up, urging her not to cry because he was still all right. But Anna was concerned because he was losing too much blood. He reassured her he was fine, just a bit hungry. He would be okay soon after a quick snack. Suddenly, he received a black core. It was a good thing he swallowed it quickly, as it boosted his resistance and helped him defeat the hawk beast. But just then, Anna was suddenly snatched away by one of the hawks. She was attacked and ended up falling after being released. Anna dropped from a great height but felt relieved when she landed in the water. The spring water felt nice. If only he were there, he could have enjoyed it too. Suddenly, the center of the water began to glow. She called out to see who was there. A figure emerged from the water, expressing relief that someone had finally discovered that place. Anna asked who it was, and the woman replied she was the guardian of the great spiritual spring. She could see what was inside Anna. It seemed something was blocking the flow of her power. Anna approached, surprised because the girl resembled her sister. The guardian clarified she wasn't her sister. She had taken that form because it was how she remembered her. The guardian told her to let go of the pain and gave Anna a kiss. Suddenly, things changed, and she found herself at the bottom of the spring, discovering a bunch of treasures. A little while later, he showed up looking for Anna, and she waved to let him know where she was. When he came down, he was taken aback because Anna had suddenly gained a massive spiritual power that not only wiped out all the negative effects, but also unlocked a ton of other skills. He asked if she was all right after everything that just went down. Anna nodded, mentioning she had just met her sister, which made Sunayan curious if he could meet his future sister-in-law. She asked if he was worried, and when he agreed, her favorability with him shot up by 50 points. Now, Sunshian had racked up more system points for boosting his favorability, allowing him to unlock the advanced devouring power. Plus, consuming different materials could provide various enhancements, like munching on iron ore would boost the iron content in the host's scales. He decided to use the 5,000 points he earned to try and settle his debts, even though he still had a little left over. Sunayan grinned, asking the system if it couldn't just wipe his debt clean. The system replied that it was against the rules. The protagonist shot back, questioning if they could really talk about rules when he existed in that world. If the players knew the truth, they'd be blown away. Since the system itself had bent the rules a bit, why not do it again? It shouldn't be a big deal. The system then explained that based on the transformation direction given, it would break down the host transformation plan into several stages. Each stage would require a chunk of the transformation fee, and Sunayan realized it was just an installment plan. At least it was way better than the ridiculously expensive transformation loans he used to rely on. Apparently they could negotiate like that without any hassle. The system warned that he could only use what he bought after settling the debt. Subneon chuckled, thinking the system was still too naive to argue with him. That's when Anna caught the protagonist's eye because there were tons of treasures nearby. When he opened one of the chests, he froze at the sight of several bones and wondered what in the world that was supposed to be. Then Ensign told her not to open the boxes yet, even though there were Purple Water Attribute magic books inside. Anna didn't really hear him and kept on opening the chests. At least it was a stroke of incredible luck. Anna was doing such a great job opening the chests that she almost looked like a true protagonist. Anna pointed out all the stuff she found inside the chests and wasn't even sure if she should be that confident. He had risked his life to get all that, and she was just breezing through, opening all the boxes. It felt a bit like a waste. The protagonist even ended up getting teased by the system, which quickly backtracked, saying he was the best of all, just to avoid getting on his bad side. So he couldn't believe it when he saw the system always pushing female products in the shops. And the system defended itself, claiming it thought its suggestions were top-notch. Releasing loans wasn't out of the question. After that little chat, suddenly Hannah popped up thanking him because her people had been rescued and could return to the dragon's lair. He got the situation and told her to head back first. He and Anna would follow a bit later. Meanwhile, in the human village, the cowardly adventurer insisted that there really were dragons in the Silver Moon Forest. But everyone laughed at him because he hadn't seen any. They barely spotted rabbits. He probably got spooked by the shadows of the trees. Everyone kept laughing at him even after he knocked down some houses to build a low tower that shot arrows. Still, the cowardly adventurer was worried because things could go south, and Jason interrupted. He suggested they needed to investigate further. He would take some folks to check out the entire Silver Forest. The cowardly adventurer was furious because everyone was laughing and doubting him. If they were acting like that, they might as well just go ahead and meet their doom. Back at the lairs, Sunsai checked out his new advanced devouring skill, which could promote physical growth even with age. He was impressed by that ability to evolve by eating other things. He thought that if devouring iron ore was tricky, swallowing rocks might just do the trick. Still, chowing down on minerals was about as enjoyable as chewing on cardboard. But the system confirmed he had munched on some rocks, boosting the strength of his shell by 1%. What really grabbed his attention was that while his toughness shot up, his speed took a nosedive. It seemed he couldn't just go around munching on anything. After all, he'd have to experiment with different foods to find out what worked best. He tried eating gold, which beefed up his scales and made him more fire-resistant. Nibbling on silver strengthened his scales and made him resistant to poison. Gobbling up a mountain wolf boosted all his stats when he was hungry, but in the end, Sunshin only saw a slight increase in his stats. He even accidentally bit his own tongue, and the system chimed in that devouring black dragon meat enhanced the purity of the Chamisodu Lapata gene. That new term piqued his curiosity. Was it some ancient dragon gene or perhaps a distant relative? If it was a male dragon, it could be his great-great-grandfather. If female, his great-great-grandmother. So he kept running a few more tests. It seemed that munching on minerals like gold and silver could amp up scale resistance. Silver provided poison resistance while gold offered fire resistance. There was a mine close to the dragon's nest worked by kobolds, but snagging gold would be trickier. After taking down the king of a certain country, strolling through the human world shouldn't be too tough anymore. Suddenly, Anna popped up showing off some interesting finds, and they were all pretty cool. That lucky character trope was a bit over the top, and it didn't take long before they headed back to the dragon's lair. Poor Akari reported that they had been quietly keeping tabs on the hero's movements in the forest these past few days, adding new items to the open treasure chests. The protagonist praised him, but hoped the items in the chests were genuinely valuable. Akari replied, "No need to worry. They were just some cooked stuffed intestines. Those guys seemed really thrilled to get them." Sun hadn't expected pork curry to be so quirky as to trade treasures for stuffed intestines. Then Hana suddenly showed up to announce she had found silver, and Sunayan felt a wave of relief. It seemed the players were itching to dive in and were ready to take the bait. He ordered pork curry and the fire rabbits to escort the soldiers to the flaming arrow tower for an attack. The Blackwater serpents and chicken snake beasts could set up an ambush, and everyone started gearing up for the big battle. In the Silver Moon Forest, the humans kept whining because there weren't even any monsters or animals around. Still, Jason warned them to be cautious. When things seemed too good to be true, it might just be a trap, but the girl scoffed, believing nothing could go wrong. They were just dumb monsters. But it didn't take long before the players started getting picked off by the monsters one by one, and casualties began to mount. The players were ambushed by the monsters, and Jason was stunned because, for some reason, the jackals, which were supposed to be common, were tough to handle. He managed to take down a few monsters and level up, but it was still rough, and he shouted for everyone to run. Jason made his way to the outer gorge of the dragon's nest, urging everyone not to stop since it seemed they were no longer being chased. The monsters were more interested in driving them away than fighting. He wondered if something worse lay ahead. One of the players pointed out some odd growths on the cliff wall that looked like giant bamboo shoots. A character used appraisal to check what it was, and Jason found it strange because it seemed out of the ordinary. Suddenly, they realized that what was hidden above were flaming arrow towers, and everyone froze in shock at the sight. This meant there had to be a human lord in that forest, which should be impossible since this was monster territory. With priests and mages protecting them, they shouldn't have anything to fear, but just then an arrow zipped past his face, and the player froze. Still, he let it go, just as he suspected. The arrows were even worse than expected. Besides being thick, they had no advantages, but when they least expected it, the arrow opened and released toxic gas. Jason shouted for everyone to cover their mouths and noses for protection. That's when several flaming arrows rained down on them and they took off running in a panic. This made Sunayan chuckle. He was thrilled because he had upgraded the flaming arrow towers, boosting their range and power, and even enhanced the types of arrows they shot. Anna offered her assistance, mentioning she had just mastered using the water and light sphere for attacks too. The protagonist declined, still a bit stunned that she had ventured all the way here instead of staying safe in the cave with Evelyn and Selena. Jason urged everyone to keep calm. The mages could stack shields and the priests needed to start healing. The strategy was in motion. As long as they avoided direct hits, they could hold out longer. Suddenly, everyone pointed skyward, their jaws dropping as they spotted the black dragon soaring above, shocked that it was real. Stan welcomed them, noting they had entered his domain despite being mere insects. Jason froze, feeling the menacing aura of the evil dragon. He couldn't believe the dragon was real. The coward from earlier hadn't been lying after all. Still, Jason managed to steady himself, realizing it was just a young dragon. This time he was leading the novice village's assault team. If they could take down the black dragon now, he could claim the title of the best player in the entire world. Sunayan called them scum and readied himself to wipe them all out. Jason shouted for everyone to stay sharp because they were under attack and needed to dodge. The protagonist unleashed his fire magic and the humans managed to defend themselves. Jason declared this was their moment. The dragon swooped down to its lowest altitude and unleashed its breath attack. The dragon was furious. If they wanted to survive, they had to follow his orders, and all the mages needed to focus their attacks in scattered areas. They could support the warrior players while they flanked from behind. Jason activated the system to drink a strength and speed potion. Everyone began their assault on Sunsan, but he couldn't grasp what was happening since they were all too weak, so he decided to finish them off without a second thought. Jason charged at the protagonist, aiming to take him out, but suddenly a blinding light caused the players to shield their eyes in pain. When he looked back, Sunayan saw that Jason had been ensnared. It was Anna, Selena, and Hana who had come to his rescue. The players realized they were outmatched. They couldn't fight against all of this. It was time to run. Sunayan laughed at their desperate attempts to escape, thinking it would be that easy. Everyone fled, chased by the kobolds. Only a handful of players made it to the plains safely, including Jason, who was caught up with the other girls. But he couldn't figure out why everything was so dark. It was Sumon's shadow looming above, shooting fire at them. The protagonist successfully triumphed over the players, racking up 2,000 points in the system. Each player death earned 5 system points. A total of 5,000 points were collected from all their demises. Back at the dragon's lair, poor Curie was emotional because they had won, but they reported they had even captured someone. The captive was none other than Jason, and they debated how to handle him. Sunayan recognized him as the guy who had tried to set an ambush against him. He commanded them to break his arms and legs and imprison him for now, leaving Jason desperate and writhing in agony. That's when Sunayan started feeling strange, on the verge of fainting for some reason, and upon checking the system, he ended up passing out, causing everyone to worry. Back in the dragon's lair, Anna asked the dragon not to give her a scare like that by suddenly fainting. Selena wondered if he might have been injured or something, until she noticed Anna letting the dragon rest on her lap. She mentioned that, according to elf legends, lap pillow therapy had proven quite effective last time. That's how he managed to wake up. The 3 girls decided to follow Anna's lead, and Porter pondered how his boss had unexpectedly passed out without warning. He was radiating a glorious aura. It could be a blinding glory, something noted in the ancestral teachings. It was a true breakthrough for the dragon, but all the girls were puzzled by the new term they had just learned. Anna reminded them not to disturb his rest. And just as the girls were leaving, the protagonist signaled for the kobold to come closer. Poor Akuri was all hyped up, thinking maybe his boss would ask him to be his right-hand man, but Bootson whispered for him to scram, or he'd end up as lunch. The kobold was left scared and scratching his head over that one. He just bolted off, claiming he suddenly remembered something he had to do. He was supposed to rally the kobolds to set up a trap around the village and handle everything else. He left them right there. Subnon then warned Anna that a dragon's breakthrough could be pretty risky. There was a chance he might not wake up, which made her really anxious to hear, but he gave her a playful lick on the face, saying it was just a phase all dragons had to go through. They gain knowledge and grow stronger while they snooze, so he reassured her not to worry, but then he ended up collapsing and falling asleep anyway. Anna promised she would wait for him to wake up and would keep him safe while he was out cold. Time went by and we returned to the human village. Inside a house, a girl was ecstatic to receive her invasion points, though a bit annoyed because she was getting spam messages in the game. Suddenly, someone burst through her door claiming to be from the king's army and there to take out the black dragon. He wanted to crash there for the night, and that's when the player got a notification that the world storyline NPC Mason had entered the novice village she was in charge of. She had 3 options to choose from. The first was to take out the NPC Masanti and take his place to complete the crucial world quest. After finishing the quest, she would score a massive amount of points. The second option was to lend a hand to the NPC Masanti. After completing the important world quest, she would earn invasion points based on her contribution, and she could go for the third option, which was to sit out of the quest entirely. Seeing this, she realized it had something to do with slaying dragons, and there was an NPC Masant. Maybe that spam message was actually on point after all. So she stood up to talk to Masanti and introduced herself as the village chief, welcoming him to their little corner. Meanwhile, Blay 1 was in his room enjoying some alone time when suddenly a girl came rushing in, pleading with the knight for help. Belay 1 was instantly smitten because she was stunning, and he figured she must have been discussing magical principles with Master Masanti. She agreed, but Masanti started getting twitchy and suddenly tried to attack her. So the village chief bolted off in a panic to ask Blay 1 for help. He was shocked that an old guy like that would try to lay hands on such a beautiful girl. She used her charm to plead with Blay 1 for assistance, and he immediately decided to back her up. He wouldn't let that man touch her and was ready to take him out. Suddenly, Blay kicked the door open, startling the mage, Masandu, who questioned what he was up to. Blay declared that violating a woman in the Unless Kingdom was a serious crime, but the mage looked confused about what he meant by that. Blay silenced him with a swift kick, stating that he should know exactly what he had done. Messin warned that if he was courting death, he couldn't blame anyone for what came next, and he started preparing a major spell against him. For some reason, his spell fizzled out, and Blay 1 chuckled because he hadn't expected him to be that weak. Still, Masana reminded him that he was there to eliminate the dragon at the king's request. At that moment, the girl from Aphora showed up asking how they could kill the dragon. They didn't need Masanti. She and Blay could handle it. Right away, Masant pointed at the girl, calling her a completely useless mage who couldn't even cast a simple spell, just an ordinary woman. She laughed, asking if he enjoyed the calming tea she had added that night. She had slipped something special into his drink, and he realized too late that she had put something strange in his drink, making him so furious that he lunged at her to kill her. But Blaze intercepted him, saying he wouldn't allow the girl named Melinda to be insulted like that. Melinda seized the moment to throw herself into Blaze's arms, begging him to save her because Masanti intended to kill her. And that's how Melinda played the knight to get the mage out of the way so she could get what she wanted. Meanwhile, Sunayan heard from Hana that something was going down. A human army was suddenly attacking. But before that could unfold, Sunayan had fallen into a deep sleep and entered the dream realm where he would undergo his evolution. He encountered another massive red dragon, making him wonder if it was his predecessor. The red dragon said he would grant him a unique inheritance to survive and drive the players out of his homeland. Everything would be fine now, and he should leave the realm immediately. Butson told him to hang tight because he had something to ask. The ancestor completely brushed him off and kicked him back into reality. Anson figured that the folks he mentioned earlier must have been the human players, so he planned to kick each one of them out, even if his predecessor hadn't mentioned it. He headed over to the Silver Moon Forest. Still, he didn't spot anyone and wondered where Anna and the others had disappeared to. Maybe he was still snoozing and just didn't realize it. Honestly, he thought his ancestor was pretty quirky. He just yanked him into the dream and bounced without explaining anything after rambling on about a bunch of stuff. He didn't even mention what was inside the purple crystal he handed over. So Sununyan just smashed it and inherited a century's worth of dragon memories. The special inheritance was secured, including the magic of dragon language, all aimed at boosting the morale of his crew with a thunderous roar. This ability would give his subordinates a boost in overall capacity and make them fearless for a while with 0 side effects. He also tapped into the secret language, revealing all life and terrain around him with just a low whisper. No disguise could slip past him. Suddenly, Sonsion spotted Anna, who was dressed in a totally different getup than usual, and she approached him saying she had been practicing dragon language magic. Just like that, Anna reminded him of their deal. If he didn't learn, he wouldn't be allowed to leave. While Sun was picturing one thing, the reality was a whole different ballgame. Anna summoned several swords for training. He asked her to hold on because he wasn't ready. This wasn't at all how he pictured training would go. Sunny even tried to call the system, but it didn't respond, making him wonder if he was still dreaming. Meanwhile, the monster leaders and most of their crew were absent from the dragon's lair. Only Hana and the others remained. Even half of the flame rabbits had vanished, with Sun still snoozing. Selena pondered what to do about the army on the attack. Anna wondered what she would do if she were Sunsen. That's when she decided to channel Sunayan and give orders to Hana. She instructed her to immediately send 2 bird demons to locate the leader of the Gnolls, Rayman, and inform him that the dragon's lair was under siege and needed reinforcements. They should alert the others to grab the flame rabbits and quickly head into the flaming arrow tower to prepare the defenses. Additionally, they should have everyone retreat into the surrounding forests along the road and start managing the situation. They wanted to avoid direct confrontation as much as possible, which left everyone else impressed because Anna took the initiative to give orders. Meanwhile, Melinda was in the thick of the human army when she noticed some of them getting ambushed along the way. She quickly realized they were being attacked from the trees. The monsters liked to aim for the head, so they needed to protect themselves. Blaze attacked and discovered they were also being hit from the rear. Melinda had inherited the power of the Archmage, and her agility had shot up significantly. If she took down the dragon, she could absorb all its power for herself and become much stronger. Melinda's abilities impressed Blaze. He had no idea her magic could be that potent. She suggested they keep torching any trees that might be hiding monsters so they could hurry. Outside the Dragon's Valley, a group of humans kept pushing forward. Melinda pointed out that the lair was very close and they needed to move in. BLA-1 was worried about her and moved closer to protect her, while Melinda thought he was being a big fool. She had underestimated the monsters, but in the end, they really had firearms. If they kept fighting like this, her army would be wiped out. She wondered if she could take down the dragon then, and Melinda thanked Blaze for covering her from the attacks. She gained momentum and soared up to unleash a flame explosion on the arrow tower that had fired at them. Anna noticed that the army had launched a quick attack, and she hoped he would wake up soon because they needed him. She kept pleading for that, and inside his dreams, the protagonist realized he could hear Anna's voice. It must be in danger. Meanwhile, Dream Anna praised Sunsen for quickly learning to use magical weapons. He could keep up the good work, but he wanted to get out of there fast and asked if she knew the way, to which Anna told him not to rush. He had promised Hannah he wouldn't leave until he completed the test, but soon Sunayan flew off far away. He never planned on sticking around until the test was over. He just wanted to bounce as fast as he could. When Anna caught up, she told him he'd have to take her down if he wanted to leave first. Meanwhile, the showdown between the players and the monsters raged on. They were itching to break into the lair and take down the dragon. Melinda thought it was odd that they had made it this far, yet Sun was still MIA, and she wondered if he had bolted. Seizing the moment, she slipped into the lair and came face to face with the massive black dragon. Taken aback by its sheer size, it was supposed to be just a juvenile dragon around level 20. Melinda decided to use her magic, magic to gauge GIs. She besrade de dressa mig upp. Sit peppa mouth watch. But out of nowhere, a massive explosion sent her flying, and she shouted, "Who did that?" The one there to guard Naeem was Anna, who commanded her to get out of the dragon's lair, like right now. The other players were stunned to see such a gorgeous woman there, and Melinda chuckled, calling her a cute girl and questioning if she really thought she could take her on with just those water balls and light spells. The other girls were on edge as Melinda geared up to attack, commenting that she was seriously overestimating herself. As Anna and the others came under fire, Melinda ordered everyone to focus on taking down the dragon first. Anna found herself trapped, and if they went through with that plan, all the girls would be theirs. She apologized to Sunsen for not being able to protect him in time. Meanwhile, Sunsei was in a heated debate with Dream Anna, trying to figure out how to escape. She warned him that if they didn't get out, the demon's seal would break, and if that happened, they'd be toast. So Na was aware of the stakes and urged her to hurry. That uneasy feeling was only growing stronger, and he hoped everyone was all right. Anna smiled, teasing that if he wanted to know the way out, he just had to come closer, and Sunayan leaned in for a kiss, wondering if that would wake him up. But Anna slapped the dragon, and boy, did he wake up feeling a sharp sting on his face from that hit. Glancing to the side, the protagonist noticed the soldiers had made their way into the dragon's lair, and he sent them all flying. As Anna turned around, she felt relieved to see that Sunam was finally awake. She apologized for not being able to protect the lair well enough on her own, but Sunayan reassured her that she did great in his absence. The other girls were in tears because he had finally woken up, and the protagonist realized he really needed to get back at those who had wronged him. This boosted his favorability with Evelyn and Selena by another 50 points, and Selena pointed at Melinda. She complained that the wicked woman had even zapped them, leaving their clothes totally wrecked. So Neon figured out that the girl was actually a pretty skilled mage player, and Melinda was left speechless. It should have been impossible for him to wake up from such a deep slumber, and she couldn't believe her eyes when he woke up so quickly. According to the message timing, it should have taken at least another week for him to wake up. Melinda was definitely fuming that Sunayan was up so soon. But he kept wondering how she even knew he was asleep. The other warriors got riled up and started bickering among themselves until they all scattered, thinking he had lost it. While they were squabbling, Blay One showed up, urging Melinda to run with him, now that the dragon was awake. They had a shot at taking it down. Melinda refused, not wanting to pass up such a golden opportunity. After all, even if she flopped, she could just respawn. Evelyn was furious when she spotted the scumbag Blaze, who had ditched her and sold her out to the bandits before Sunayan could find her. Melinda unleashed an ice shock spell on them, and Anna yelled to the protagonist, "Watch out!" Sun turned around after feeling the weak attack and asked if it was Melinda who had done it. But she didn't let up on her assault. She kept firing off fire spells, but none of them landed, leaving her scratching her head in confusion. She wondered if Sunsen's resistance had shot up so much after leveling up that they were at a loss for how to take him down. The protagonist launched an attack, but instead of finishing her off, Sunyan decided to restrain Melinda because he wanted her to suffer for what she had done, all because she messed with his people. Melinda felt a bit relieved that the game had those mechanics. She could end her own life and come back, but Sunny used his ability to make her drop her weapon. Thinking about dying wouldn't be that easy. When he was alone with Melinda, Anna popped up to tell him that Evelyn was gone, but he wasn't worried. After all, with her magic, regular soldiers were completely helpless against her. Meanwhile, Blaze was sprinting solo through the Silver Moon Forest, dodging attacks from Evelyn, who was furious at him for always being a coward and running away at the first hint of trouble. Blaze hit the ground after getting attacked, whining about the pain and asking if he even remembered who Evelyn was. That only fueled her anger more because he had truly forgotten her to that degree. That's when the light bulb finally went off in his head. Blaze thought she had been snatched by bandits, but now she realized that Evelyn had been captured by the Black Dragon. He even had the audacity to suggest she follow him, assuring her that he wouldn't dislike her or anything like that. Fuming, the girl gestured for him to come closer, and Blay One got all giddy, thinking he was about to get a kiss, only to get socked in the face instead. Blay One got mad because she dared to hit him, so she shouldn't be surprised by what was about to go down. He whipped out a potion and tossed it at her. Evelyn quickly realized her magic was suppressed and asked what he had just sprayed on her. Belay One chuckled at that. He didn't expect the stuff he swiped from Melinda to be that handy, and then he pointed his sword at her neck. The girl shot back that her sister was a professor at the Onless Magic Academy. If he killed her, he could end up being hunted by the academy. But that didn't faze him one bit if her sister asked. He just casually mentioned that the Black Dragon got bored of playing with her and gobbled her up. And that's how he wrapped up Evelyn's story. Meanwhile, outside the dragon's lair, Sunayan was chasing down all the others who were trying to make a run for it. He used his abilities to freeze his enemies in place and disarm them, leaving the players baffled about what had just happened. Anna watched from a distance, captivated as poor Curry and the others were making their way back. Sunshin replied that she shouldn't look or she'd end up seeing a pigsty. Instead, he suggested they head back to the dragon's lair. He could handle this all by himself. Porter Karibo was apologizing for being late, and Sunshin responded that it was all good. It wasn't their fault. They mentioned they found Blaze in the forest when they returned along with Evelyn's corpse, which sent Sunsin into a rage. And Blay even claimed that she just accidentally bumped into his sword, shamelessly pretending. But as long as they let him go, he could spill a secret that Nayan would definitely want to hear. After everything, he revealed that Melinda was the one who tricked him into going there to take out the dragon. She also offed the great mage Masanti and is now the head honcho of Village 6. There were still 5,000 villagers itching to take down the dragon, and Sun paused to think about that. It seemed like there was more than one newbie village nearby, keeping tabs on him, the treasure boss of the region. Blay asked if he was satisfied with the secret now, and Sunayan admitted it was decent info. He was pumped, asking if he could leave now, and a protagonist agreed, so he just bolted. The kobolds wondered if they could really just let that guy go, so they shot flames at his body and burned him. Subnian confirmed that He never said he would let him return to the city, and the kobolds cheered because their chief was truly something else. He hoped that Blaze's death could be seen as revenge for the late Evelyn after all. So he helped the NPC fulfill her last wish and received her blessing. The system congratulated him for unlocking the special ability called Teleportation Circle. He also racked up 6,000 system points from this battle. Sunayan asked if the system could send him straight to a newbie village. The system explained that teleportation could only take him to places he had been or places marked by past generations of dragons. Even though he got it, he still realized this had been the biggest crisis in his territory due to his sleep. If he had been awake, there wouldn't have been so many casualties during the battle. Sunayan asked if there was any way to shorten or get rid of his forced sleep trait. The system replied that slightly reducing sleep time and boosting inheritance acceptance efficiency would cost 5,000 points. To moderately cut down sleep and increase inheritance acceptance efficiency would take double the points, and to completely wipe out sleep time would require even more points than that. So Nian got annoyed because after all that, he was still stuck sleeping anyway. He wondered if he could just refuse the inheritance and recalled Anna from his dreams saying he couldn't reject the inheritance or he'd kick the bucket. Still not getting why he remembered that weird dream version of Anna. Sunayan asked if the system could send him straight to a newbie village. The system explained that teleportation could only take him to places he had been or places marked by past generations of dragons. Even though he got it, he still realized this had been the biggest crisis in his territory due to his sleep. If he had been awake, there wouldn't have been so many casualties during the battle. Sunayan asked if there was any way to shorten or get rid of his forced sleep trait. The system replied that slightly reducing sleep time and boosting inheritance acceptance efficiency would cost 5,000 points. To moderately cut down sleep and increase inheritance acceptance efficiency would take double the points, and to completely wipe out sleep time would require even more points than that. So Nian got annoyed because after all that, he was still stuck sleeping anyway. He wondered if he could just refuse the inheritance and recalled Anna from his dreams, saying he couldn't reject the inheritance or he'd kick the bucket. Still not getting why he remembered that weird dream version of Anna. He asked the system why other people popped up in his dreams. The system replied that typically strangers don't show up in dreams about inheritance, but in rare instances, a companion spirit could be formed. This spirit was created based on what he enjoyed in his dreams, helping to complete his dreams and advance his magical abilities. He recalled how Anna appeared in his dream and smiled when Porokuri came over, asking if something was bothering him since he was smiling like that. So Nan kept his thoughts to himself and asked if something had happened, to which he replied that some humans had surrendered and they wanted to know if they should take them out. The protagonist tossed Melinda aside and commanded her to gather her crew to eliminate the human soldiers who refused to give up. They could lock up those who surrendered, and they would keep an eye on Melinda to ensure she stayed alive until he got back. The kobold agreed, curious if his master planned to return to the dragon's nest anytime soon. He replied, "Not yet, since the 7 days are up. I will personally take care of the incineration today." Suban intended to repay the humans and wasn't about to let the night slip by without action. Outside the dragon's lair, later on, Anna and Selena approached to chat with the protagonist. Selena was in tears because the great dragon had returned and wanted to know if Evelyn could ever come back after everything. Sunayan asked if they were aware of all this. He was shocked because Porer's gossip really spread like wildfire. Anna asked if he would be sad if she died one day, clearly confused by the sudden question. She added that if someone felt sad for her, her death would be even sadder. Ancion stated that death held no meaning since it was inevitable. He would become strong enough to stay at the top of the food chain. He wouldn't die due to weakness. Selena said she also wanted to grow stronger, and so time passed through the night. Sunshin went to the beginner village, and the players were alerted to a powerful creature approaching. A monster siege was underway. The newbie village's protection was activated. Scanning the current village to the first level, the protection level increased again, and all monster stats would be reduced by 50% in the newbie village. The guard shouted to everyone that an enemy had been spotted and they should all be on high alert. The newbie village's protection was activated. All stats would be reduced, and Sunune was surprised that something like that existed. The protection mechanism of the novice village affected a spherical area with a radius of 500 meters centered on the novice village. But 500 meters was plenty, and he got ready to attack. The players ran because the great black dragon was descending and attacking. His power was indeed diminished. That level of explosion felt like a chicken pecking at rice, and the houses weren't even scorched. The players couldn't understand why the black dragon was attacking stealthily in the middle of the night all of a sudden. Another player said they shouldn't be scared. If the dragon was weakened, they could team up and definitely take down the black dragon. They shouted for everyone to hurry to the central plaza and focus their attacks. The mages should cast their shields too. The protagonist noticed they took the bait quickly and got ready for battle. It didn't take long for the attacks to come flying toward him. He took the hit, and the mage celebrated because the attacks worked. The dragon was getting scared, but the protagonist laughed. It was truly a joke. Then he used his teleportation ability to appear in the village, and just like that, he unleashed his attack through the magic circle, and the power reverberated throughout the village. Very powerful, as expected. When players upgrade and strengthen without restrictions, their power and impact were greater. The system congratulated him for wiping out a novice village that was erased from the map thanks to his direct hit. He also acquired the novice village core fragment, something new for Sunshin to behold. All players from the novice village of Sakura Island 6 would be resurrected, but they would be sent to random locations in other novice villages. Sunayan was surprised because it ended so quickly. It was too easy to handle the novices. He asked the system what the village fragment was and if it had any specific use for him in any way. The system replied that this was a highly important item. He was advised to keep it safe and not waste it. Signon asked if that was all. His crew had goblins as expert builders, and they could whip up structures in no time. He couldn't wrap his head around what the construction core of a village was even good for. The system warns him not to underestimate the village's construction order like that. Subanian is taken aback because it felt like the system was pulling a prank by lecturing him. He starts to wonder if the novice village core was carefully selected by the system. The previous two forces were just paper tigers, easy to knock down, and totally useless. But what really blew Sunsen away was that he scored 25,000 points, and now he was definitely fired up. He tells the system to gather materials, then wipe out some villages, and they could work on boosting his village's resources later that day. The system advises against this. Constantly wiping out novice villages would put him on everyone's radar. High visibility would label Nyan as a world boss, revealing his location along with his group's current strength, making it tough for him to fend off tens of thousands of players attacking his city all at once. The protagonist is stunned that something so extreme could happen. It felt like he'd be hunted every single day. But he decides to let it slide for now. He figures he could show some mercy and spare their lives. He asks the system how he could collect novice village core fragments, since destroying villages would raise his profile. The system replies that novice villages were just the tip of the iceberg. Many more novice villages would be destroyed down the line, and the host could temporarily hide under the radar of the most powerful individuals that show up. In other words, the system basically told him to zip it and do nothing. This world was really behind the times. News was incredibly scattered and disjointed. The system mentions it has the law of the sacrifice ritual, so he could send and develop followers to keep tabs on the movements across the entire continent. Nayan then asks if this sacrifice ritual was similar to the previous summoning and when he could expect to receive summons. The system says that since Sunsen is currently at a low level, he can't choose independently, he'll just have to wait. The protagonist heads back to the Silver Moon Forest and spots Anna at the top of a cliff, which makes him yell for her not to jump. She gets startled and falls into the water just as another girl is in the water and screams in surprise. Nian realizes they were in the middle of a bath. While she and Selena were bathing, the protagonist suddenly freezes. He sees an NPC pop up out of nowhere, and the system states that she issued a special summoning invitation, while Sunim feels a bit dizzy. Anna is amazed because he's witnessing such a mind-blowing illusion, and she wonders if maybe when Selena fell on his head before jumping into the water, it caused him to end up like this. Selena grumbles that she wasn't that heavy. She learned some first aid to get involved with the mercenary group, but she wasn't sure if that would help with dragons. Anna agrees they should try to do something. While Sune is drifting in the midst of the illusions, Selena comes over and gives him a solid smack to wake him up. He tells her to chill because he's fine. Sunayan is a bit taken aback and wonders what exactly she learned in the mercenary group to act like that. So Nian asks the system if he missed anything, and the system replies that he just missed the summoning while pretending to be out cold. The protagonist sighs. The system could just go ahead and do things without his say-so. Now he missed the chance to interact with that NPC after the shock. He then asks Selena if guys and girls could bathe together, and she nods. There are hot springs in the main cities of every country. They even hold tug-of-war competitions sometimes in the hot springs, and everyone gets involved. That instantly fired Sunsen up to plan a tug-of-war competition in the hot springs that very day. Selena isn't sure where they could find a hot spring, and he replies that it's just a hot spring. He then asks the system if it could upgrade with something useful, maybe a heater or something like that. The system says it can mainly offer transformation services. The purpose of the shop is to boost Sunayan's happiness. Stay himself didn't seem too happy at all. Now he grumbles that if only there were a way to complain to the system, things would be better. The system stays quiet until Sunayan asks how many system points it costs to upgrade and modify the explosive dragon form. The system informs him that upgrading and modifying the explosive dragon form would cost 9,000 system points, and now he had enough to go for it, so Neon decides to kick things off. Then the system chimes in saying this transformation would require a molten heart and would make some serious changes to the host body looks and muscles, which would hurt like crazy. So the system adds a soundproof barrier to protect his vocal cords. He hits the ground rolling around, leaving the girls puzzled, wondering if he was just super excited or something. But it didn't take long for the dragon form to lock in successfully. This upgrade came with some serious perks. His muscle strength shot up by 50%, while his force and scale strength doubled. The weakness of his armor dropped by 10%. Defense went up by 30%, and his body flexibility skyrocketed by 100%. Nayan asks what's happening, and the system explains that his molten heart could reach a temperature of up to 800 degrees. Getting too close would mean serious burns. At that moment, he's stunned because he's basically turning into pure fire. He's a dragon, not some kind of campfire. It felt like a rigged game, and the system told him to chill out a bit. After installing the heat dissipator, the molten heart's temperature would drop to 38.6 degrees Celsius. And that's in a non-eruptive state. A protective biological film would be added to keep others nearby from getting burned. It didn't feel hot anymore, and a refreshing breeze made him feel great. Even though it cost a bit, it was pretty nice. The system congratulated him on nailing the explosion transformation. It boosted his overall combat power by 50%. Sunseon thought that wasn't too shabby, and he asked what the system meant by overall explosive power. The system suggested he take a deep breath, and that would be enough to unleash some fire, which made Selena grumble because he scorched her clothes. With the addition of a water-cooled radiator, his body could automatically adjust the temperature of the fire jet. So Nian asks why they suddenly dashed to the water, and Selena says, obviously, it's because he ruined their clothes. The protagonist realizes he's never seen Anna in a swimsuit before, and in the system, he finds only a few options. Soon, he buys 3 swimsuits and jumps into the water himself, not believing there were actually swimsuits for dragons. The girls are having a blast in the water, enjoying the comfy swimming down there, which was free and fun for Selena, and those swimsuits were just perfect for swimming. So he suggests they could start a tug-of-war now. Meanwhile, inside the sacred temple, the girl with yellow hair asks if they still have the strength to fight back. Another girl replies that the reinforcements led by Alicia are still 3 days away and they should make a run for it in the meantime. But this makes the princess furious. She knows escaping wouldn't let her take many of her people with her to survive. She refuses to leave the temple. She plans to stay there and pray to the saint, asking for protection for her people until the very end. The other girl complains that the princess should stop praying to the gods. After all, they've been abandoned by them by now. She approaches the princess to make her stop bowing, even if it's against her will. She needs to ensure her safety. That's her mission. The princess tells her to let go, but the other girl refuses and just carries her outside when a magic circle suddenly appears. The two look back, thinking a miracle is happening. But everyone freezes in confusion when they see Wit appear. There's a dragon. While the protagonist is bewildered by suddenly showing up inside the temple, he asks the system to explain what's going on. The girls freeze in shock at the sight of a dragon, and the princess ends up being dropped by the warrior who apologizes. The princess wonders if the messenger of her god is actually a black dragon, and the system responds to the protagonist. That's because he himself had said he would automatically accept any summoning made, and he sighed because the system was really obedient. Still, that wasn't a compliment, and he got annoyed because the system was still acting all proud of what it had done. He was about to hit a critical state when he was suddenly interrupted. Then the princess approaches all happy because God had heard her prayers. Just when he was about to hit a breaking point, he got interrupted. The princess came over all smiles, claiming that the big guy upstairs had answered her prayers. She wonders if God sent Sunayan to rescue her people and belt out some Olivia tunes. But just as he turns around, his tail swipes and shatters a statue of a god. The girls freeze in disbelief, and Sunayan coughs. He introduces himself as their real god, actually. He wasn't a fan of the statue they crafted for him, but he knew she called him for a reason and asks what that reason is. The princess explains that she, the Holy Maiden of St. Olivia, originally hailed from a peaceful and stable nation on the southern continent. But a notorious band of mercenaries known as the Black Beasts invaded her homeland, not only looting and slaughtering everyone, but also aiming to create what they called a servant state. So the two girls bow down, pleading for him to save their people. They pledge their loyalty to the great dragon. Sunayan instantly gains 100 favorability points. He acknowledges her plea, stating that offering her loyalty would compel him to wipe out their enemies right away. The princess proclaims that she, Celestina, is ready to offer her soul and loyalty to him, even grabbing a knife on the spot. Sumi quickly boosts the girl's favorability, hitting the max at 300 points. But Sunayan swats her hand with his tail after she offers herself as a sacrifice, calling her a fool for acting that way. Celestina cries in confusion, and Sunayan retorts that he doesn't need the loyalty of the dead, but of the living. As long as she follows his lead and never betrays him, he would guarantee her safety above all else. He thought she was nuts for believing in God and thinking of offering her life for loyalty before he could even lift a finger. Sunayan was surprised she managed to get that knife from somewhere. Celestina agrees with the dragon's words, and her favorability points soar, racking up 3,000 system points. Cyan asks the system what the special ability of promise is. If this girl is truly a special NPC, the system tells him to hang tight. She's a special rank NPC named Celestina. He can tap into her special ability as soon as he fulfills her wish, which is making the protagonist a bit annoyed. The system is getting smarter by the minute. It knows how to draw him in and use him for its own ends. So he grumbles that this isn't what the system told him before, and Celestina asks if she said something wrong since he seems irritated, making the protagonist sigh, feeling he misjudged. The sooner he wraps this up, the better. Now he just wants to go and take out the mercenary group. Maybe he could still catch up to Anna and have the tug of war he was itching for, and he tries to leave the temple even though he's too big for that. Celestina informs him that the leader of the mercenary group is a 4th Order warrior named Jeshit. He's incredibly ruthless and commands 3,000 humanoids, so she warns him to be cautious when facing them. The protagonist decides to discuss some specifics first, wanting to know how far the mercenary group is from the capital. He's also curious about their strength and how many troops Celestina still has on her side. She explains that the Empire oversees more than 3,000 humanoid races. Their strengths vary widely, from the weakest goblins to the most formidable ogres. By now, they should have already taken the sacred wall of Feline, which is just a day's journey from the capital. Celestina sadly mentions that she no longer has troops to fight on her behalf. Naya is impressed by what she hears. No wonder they were begging the gods for help in this dire situation. The only thing they could do was pray for divine protection. The protagonist sighs in relief because he wasn't being reckless. Those humanoids were like the players who had just left the Navy's village. Their combat strength was far superior to regular soldiers, not to mention a powerful 4th Order warrior. So Neon had to pause and come up with a plan. Meanwhile, at the sacred wall of Feline, an ogre remarks that the women of this place are worthy of the coastal country. He only left his home after leaving a woman inside alone when a man barged in furious at the state the beast had left the place in. That was the level 28 ogre. He relayed the information to others who told Esri to keep quiet because the rest were closing in. In no more than 3 days, they intended to wipe out all the monsters. Esri was even more annoyed because he'd have to wait that long. He had been undercover in this mercenary group for 5 days, and his comrades shouldn't even know how terrible it was. Esri found himself stuck there even longer, forced to witness this human nightmare. While those low-life monsters lived it up without a care in the world. They could just launch an attack anytime since they would just come back to life anyway, even if their chances of resurrection were pretty rare. Still, it seemed like his buddies had no heart when it came to leaving those folks in such a terrible situation. One of his comrades urged Esri to chill out and just hang in there a little longer, But Ezri couldn't keep his cool with such a scene unfolding before him. He covered the woman lying on the ground and apologized, vowing to take revenge on the others for the awful things they had done. But just as he was about to storm off, his friends called out to Ezri to hold up because they didn't belong to that land. He couldn't forget their main goal, which was to conquer the area and win the bet they had made. Above all, they had to protect their own homeland, but Ezri brushed them off and stormed away irritated. In the monster's camp, Ezri snapped and took down the beasts in a fit of rage, doing it all by himself. Upon hearing this, the ogre leader chuckled because he never expected a traitor to pop up among the mercenaries, and they were still foolish enough to walk right into his trap, which only fueled Ezri's anger. Then he turned around at the sound of a noise. Meanwhile, Sunayan had made it to the local fortress. He met up with Gus, a level 35 Black Knight, who informed him that the humans had claimed their territory. His presence there ticked him off, and that was just a warning. If they were still hanging around, when he got back still on that wall, he would wipe them all out. So Nan promised to turn them all to ashes. But Gus just laughed, thinking there was some kind of misunderstanding. That wall belonged to the Sacred Kingdom, not them. They were just attacking the nation and had no real stake in it. Gus claimed he just liked making friends with powerful beings and didn't see himself as just a human. Haven showed off his subordinates as proof. In short, they just wanted to team up with the dragon. After taking over the kingdom, they could even split the loot. They'd give 90% and only keep 10%. So they called themselves greedy humans, while daring to ask for 10% from a place where 100% was rightfully his. When he returned, he wanted to see the kingdom's treasures and women right there. Otherwise, he would wipe them all out. So Sunayan took off toward the sacred wall of Pheno. Everyone froze when they spotted the dragon flying in their direction. The warrior shouted that it was an enemy attack and they needed to scatter. Everyone had to stay alert. They needed to quickly inform Commander Gus because the dragon had returned. They should create cover since a dragon's breath was incredibly powerful. Sunayan told them all to run because they were just targets for his system. They might not be a formidable force, but their numbers were truly impressive. You had to give credit to the leader of the Black Beast mercenary group for being quite clever. The barracks were spread out and they even dug trenches in the field they had taken. So Nayan unleashed his fire attack and everyone bolted while another warrior questioned why he was attacking the mercenary group. Nayan shot a glare at Gus and ignored him, leaving the others wondering what they should do now even though they were just as clueless. Gus couldn't figure out why a black dragon showed up there. It had been years since they last saw a dragon. Gus ordered that all elites be informed to prepare for an immediate attack on the sacred capital of the kingdom. They believed some lackey at the sacred wall was mainly there to prevent any possible reinforcements from arriving. He was furious that the dragon had shown up like that. No creature had ever dared to challenge him without paying the price. Gus better run so he wouldn't come back and end up dead. Otherwise, they would definitely deal with him themselves. Celestina, who was riding on his back, asked if he was really sure about that, and he replied that he didn't even need to worry because everyone would be gone soon. Once their main force left, they could take the Great Sacred Wall without lifting a finger to resolve the issue. And they could also handle all their engineering, cutting off anything they might have programmed to do. Celestina was impressed with the things he thought of. Sunayan was indeed quite clever to come up with such plans. Then he asked the princess if her knight should be arriving soon, and until then, trusting the defense of the sacred wall to her would ensure her safety. Celestina asked if he was talking about Alicia, and confirmed that the girl was indeed an impressive knight. Next up was Celestina's turn, which left her scratching her head, and Sand suggested she should charm the guys, totally catching her off guard. At the top of the sacred wall, Celestina made her way down, calling the humanoids ugly and despicable to grab their attention. The monsters spotted Celestina and realized they were indeed the best. They even dared to approach her, albeit a bit shaky, and she warned them not to come any closer, or she'd use her staff to throw down. The monsters laughed as they got closer, asking if she really planned to take them out. Celestina asked how they knew what she was about to say. As they reached out to grab her, she stepped back, telling them not to touch her, and begged Sunayan to save her. That's when a massive explosion went off, catching the monsters off guard. It was Sunshin who showed up just in time. He roasted two of the monsters while Isri managed to make a getaway, still in disbelief that a black dragon had appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly he heard his buddies calling out, asking what was going on in the city. They wanted to report ASAP. Turning around, Esri realized some folks were dead and informed his comrades that the mercenary group was heading toward the royal capital. He figured there was no point in hiding in the capital any longer, which made his comrades uneasy, wondering what was up. Maybe he was about to be exposed. Ezri replied that it wasn't about being exposed or not. The entire Black Beast mercenary group had been ambushed by a black dragon and suffered heavy losses, and the black dragon was still planning to come back and finish the job. He suspected Gus wouldn't hesitate and would go straight for the royal capital, not even stopping to mess around in the villages along the way. Meanwhile, in the Celestial Dynasty's Namus village, news came in about a black dragon showing up. This was a huge discovery, and a guy asked if they had a shot at taming the dragon. Meanwhile, Ezri sent a video of what had gone down to his comrades, hoping they'd take a good look. Even so, he himself was baffled by what kind of joke this was. The level 32 black dragon had shown up a beast, still completely unknown. In a city, they reported hearing about the black dragon, and Ezri managed to send Sunayan's video so everyone could check it out. When the video played, the players froze in shock because it was actually a level 32 fourth order magical beast. They heard he wiped out Sakura Village, and because of that, they might have underestimated the strength of the locals, especially some legendary creatures. One of them asked if it was a bit of an exaggeration to say they were guarding the sacred wall. Ezri's report mentioned only a bit of this, but powerful magical beasts weren't that scary. What was truly concerning was that they had intelligence similar to dragons. They could notice this if they observed carefully. The dragon returned intentionally and also knew how to use flanking attacks. If all legendary creatures in other worlds were like this, they feared it would be tough to win the bet at this rate, which meant they wouldn't just need to subdue the locals, but also the magical beast itself. With that, all players received updated info that a new world boss had appeared. Meanwhile, Celestina wondered what they should do next. Since it would take about a day and a half for the great dragon to reach the capital, Sunayan suggested she tell her subordinates to inform the villagers to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary casualties. They could only wait there, and she agreed with his instructions when the system notified Sunayan that a new world boss had appeared. The protagonist got curious about who the unlucky soul was that had been marked as the world boss so quickly when he realized it was himself, and he thought the boss was really weak, but then recognized that face and started to break out in a cold sweat. The system announced that Sunayan's subordinate had wiped out a rookie village and the rewards were being handed out. As soon as he realized that the idiot of the world boss, boss was him, the protagonist froze and wondered what his men had been up to while he was away. Celestina approached asking what was wrong, and Sun San whimpered because this was not a good day to be alive. In fact, he needed to focus on getting back. He had no idea what might be happening with Anna and the others. If he showed up even a minute late, the whole world might find out he was the world boss and the news would spread like wildfire. So the protagonist told the princess that he felt the divine realm calling him and that he needed to step out for a bit but would be back soon. The protagonist teleported back to his hideout and called for everyone, but to his surprise, no one responded. Only one kobold was snoozing, and when Sun shouted at him, he jumped up in shock. He burst into tears upon seeing his master had returned safely and asked what had happened while he was gone. The kobold explained that he had suddenly vanished, as if snatched by some unseen force. So Anna and the others started searching for him, beginning with a nearby village. Nian figured they must be in a small group raiding the rookie village to find him. Anna checked the area and confirmed they still hadn't spotted any sign of the dragon. Everyone reported they hadn't seen any black dragon and they must be in the wrong spot. Anna didn't think they were lying. He really wasn't there. Anna suggested they keep moving forward and searching when she suddenly heard the dragon's voice. She felt a wave of relief wash over her as she saw he had returned just in time. Unexpectedly, Anna turned out to be a natural at leading troops. If he had come back just a tad later, they probably would have reached the kingdom of Onless and stirred up a massive mess. Selena asked where he had disappeared to so suddenly while they were at the hot springs. She had no idea how worried Anna had been. He replied that he didn't want to vanish like that either. It was all the system's fault, not his. Anna sighed. At least she was glad to see he was safe. But suddenly his vision felt like it was going blurry. When he glanced to the side, poor Kuri appeared, reporting that all the loot from the villagers had been gathered, and there was a massive pile of gold. Nian was amazed that such a thing was even possible and wondered if he could really be considered the ultimate villain. Many times he felt out of place because he didn't have enough power, at least not as much as those around him. Putting that aside, Sunayan devoured all the gold, which totaled 49,700 grams. The high-level consumption analysis allowed him to boost the armor's strength on the gold attribute scale. His fire element resistance also increased, and Sun received the core fragment of the rookie village along with 20,000 system points. Even so, the protagonist wouldn't fall for what the system was trying to suggest, likely trying to coax him into doing something shady. Meanwhile, in the royal capital, Alicia asked the princess where the great dragon had gone since the mercenary group was approaching the royal capital. Celestina was worried because they had arrived quickly, not even waiting for nightfall. Alicia pointed out that since the mercenary group had stopped targeting villages and there were no guards to defend them, their speed had significantly increased. This made the princess anxious because the Dragon Lord had returned to the Divine Realm the night before and wasn't there. The knight suggested they should hurry and escape, which made the princess hesitate at the suggestion once more. Meanwhile, Gus and a buddy arrived at the location where the royal capital of the kingdom they were set to invade should have been. But something felt off. They passed through all the villages but didn't find even a hint of an army. No one even came out to resist the invasions, and they wondered if it was possible that everyone had fled in advance. That's when they all froze as Celestina appeared, captivated by the gaze of that girl, the saint who stood on the city walls. Several other girls emerged from within the kingdom, and the mercenaries got pumped to attack the city right away. They didn't have many troops left, just a small number of walls, and they could easily crush them. Gus yelled for them all to shut it. It seemed like they had followed him for so long but left their brains behind for being so foolish. Obviously, something was off. There had to be a trap for all of them to be luring them in like that. He ordered one of his warriors to gather all the troops to guard the moat. They would attack the city and cut off the supply lines. In a few days, they would come crawling back to them, and his soldiers agreed that their commander was truly remarkable. Only someone with such strategic genius could come up with such an impressive plan. Gus urged Celestina to let go of her feelings and just give in. She felt she had no choice but to comply, thinking it would be easier to just become his concubine. Everyone burst into laughter while the princess stood her ground. After all he had wiped out, her people invaded her kingdom, and now he dared to disrespect her home. She would rather meet her end than let him off the hook, even if it meant dragging them all down with her. Gus chuckled, knowing the nearby villages were still filled with her people. They could easily be brought to the city gates. He even suggested they could execute those folks right in front of their princess men slaughtered and women violated. One of her women pleaded for her life, not wanting to die, and Celestina's anger only intensified. Suddenly, a voice chimed in saying that Gus's idea was indeed audacious, but he would be signing his own death warrant if he tried it. Celestina looked up, her heart soaring at the familiar voice. It was the divine dragon who had just returned. Everyone recognized Sunson the dragon, who had breached the sacred barrier. He was there to assist the saint. Upon seeing the dragon, Gus's fury ignited as he recalled the dragon that had attacked their group previously. He laughed as he took to the skies, singing praises about how bright the sun was. But their hearts were dark and corrupt, so he was more than happy to lend them a hand. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Then he unleashed his flame lance, sending all the men into a panic. They couldn't stay still. They scrambled to get into position as fast as they could. Gus reminded them that he was also a Fourth Order warrior and laughed, questioning if Sunayan really dared to confront him. Even if they were human, they were still enemies of the great dragon, and their spears were their best shot against dragons. The long spears would be launched without hesitation. Sometimes skill could bridge the gap in strength. They aimed to concentrate their attack on a single point to hit the enemy's weakest spot. Even if the opponent was a mighty dragon, he would surely fall. But even the spear strikes had no effect, leaving the warrior stunned by what he had just witnessed. He wondered how it was possible for Sunayan to possess such powerful scales, unable to believe that a creature like that existed. In a desperate attempt to take down the protagonist, he launched even more spears in rapid succession. Suncia merely dodged, asking if those toothpicks could even be classified as weapons. At that, Gus's anger boiled over, and he decided to pull a move that made his companions uneasy. He told everyone to watch closely as he unleashed his strongest attack, and he hurled his spear in the direction of the insane one, who caught it effortlessly. The protagonist coughed through the smoke, baffled as to why he was holding something so flashy. But before the protagonist could even register what was happening, Gus had disappeared. He truly was a coward, bolting away in a hurry. After claiming he would fight one-on-one, he just took off. Even the ogres and goblins were taken aback. The mercenary group couldn't function without their captain. Soon, they set all the monsters ablaze without mercy as they fled for their lives. Watching this unfold, Celestina noted that Gus and a few other mercenaries had managed to escape, and she wondered if they should go after them. Nian replied that they couldn't let them slip away. As Gus dashed through the great sacred wall, he seethed at the dragon responsible for this, but he would just have to bide his time because someday he would return to exact revenge for the humiliation he had endured. Before he knew it, Alicia appeared above him on the wall, questioning what he planned to do. The man was stunned because she was supposed to be at the border fortress, and he wanted to know how she had reached the sacred wall so quickly, even though this was clearly his territory. Sunayan replied that the sacred wall was now completely under his command. Gus was bewildered by the turn of events, unable to grasp how things had spiraled out of control, and the protagonist finished the job by engulfing him in flames. The system congratulated him for wiping out the Black Beast mercenary group and rewarded him with 6,000 system points. Back at the capital, everyone bowed down, pledging their loyalty to the great dragon for saving the remainder of their people. The protagonist stated that he had helped their nation withstand this disaster, and in return they should become his loyal vassals. Celestina agreed, and in the name of her kingdom. From that day forward, they willingly became his vassals to be used as he saw fit. Thus, Nian gained even more favorability points, just as expected. It was 3,000 points. The gap between NPCs was still pretty noticeable, so he asked the system what the special ability was this time. He was curious if there were any extra conditions. The system was a bit taken aback since he clearly had zero faith in them, but regardless, it congratulated him on snagging a special upgrade. It was called the Power of the Fierce Dragon. Sunan requested it to load the power immediately. He wanted to see what this fierce dragon power was all about. The power was activated and a massive gust of wind hit the girls, causing Sunayan to apologize since he couldn't contain it. In reality, the dark aura surrounding him was a grand power, almost like he was unleashing a dragon's essence. It was pretty epic. So his overall abilities would get a 15% boost when he unleashed the dragon's power. Celestina asked if he was planning to leave now, and he confirmed he was. There was something he needed to take care of before heading out. She inquired what it was, eager to help in any way she could. Sunayan asked if there was any sign of a priestess nearby. He wanted to find someone who could heal. Alicia stepped forward, guessing he must be referring to the elusive priestess, Kavia. She lived in the third fortress, but was always on the move. Due to the war, neither Alicia nor anyone else could pinpoint her exact whereabouts. Then, Alicia suggested that Sunayan could hang around the kingdom for a few days. They could speed up the search for Priestess Kaga and bring her to him. The protagonist figured he had no choice but to wait, and Celestina got excited because she would ask someone to arrange accommodations. In her room, Celestina was still captivated by the dragon's bravery when suddenly someone knocked on her door. It was Alicia who walked in and asked how the princess could just be lounging around at such a crucial moment. Celestina was confused, wondering if another mercenary group was attacking again. But the knight clarified that it wasn't that. It was about the dragon god Celestina had been obsessing over. The princess insisted she wasn't doing that, claiming it was utterly ridiculous. But Alicia could see her heart was saying otherwise. After all, she probably wanted to keep Sun Nai close. Celestina admitted it was something she would love to do. Then Alicia leaned in and whispered something in her ear. However, Celestina shot it down, saying such a plan was impossible. She could never pull something like that with a god. And Alicia asked if she really intended to just let him go. Even after being told how to keep him around, she could still make a choice and give it a shot. A little later, Celestina hoped she wouldn't be upset about it, but the thought of him leaving made her heart heavy. Anyway, she could end up regretting it, so she dashed to the dragon god's room to make a request. The protagonist was taken aback to see Celestina there, who declared she wanted to be with him. And on top of that, she asked if he could understand her feelings, even going so far as to say he could call her by her name. He was a bit stunned, but he also sensed Anna behind him fuming, and he asked the system what was happening. He had no idea how long Celestina had been acting this way or if there was a way to help her. The system reassured Sunayan that he could stay calm, as it might just be related to his dragon aura. It had a massive effect on those who had a contract with him, leading to everyone being enamored with him. So he asked if there was anything he could do to help her, even if it meant using his dragon breath. The system warned that yes, there was. After all, she was a special female S-rank NPC. Killing her outright would only grant him her 4th level magical abilities, which were nothing to him. In fact, as long as he kept his distance from the contracted person, the influence of his dragon aura would lessen and she would return to her normal self. The protagonist then approached Celestina, who was eager right away, but he just wanted to make her open her eyes before Anna did something rash. Celestina pointed at Anna and asked who she was, and he replied that she was his companion, then asked what Celestina needed. Celestina froze in shock upon hearing he already had a partner, realizing she must have looked like a total fool. She then said she only wanted to discuss something with him. After Sunshin left, she reorganized the army, trained hard, and boosted the country's military strength. In truth, Celestina had no hidden agendas, while Sunsei had felt like the world was on the brink of chaos. He realized he couldn't shield that country forever. He was pretty swamped, so he figured it was time for her to learn to fend for herself. Celestina quickly said her goodbyes and took off. The protagonist let out a sigh of relief now that she was finally gone. He told Anna not to get the wrong idea, but she grumbled because in the end, she still had to deal with that even while being labeled a companion. A little while later, Alicia came to inform Sensei that they had located Priestess Kavia, and he finally grasped the situation, requesting that she be brought inside. Soon enough, they wheeled in a carriage, and the protagonist couldn't fathom how that could be so intimidating, even in a Western setting. The priestess apologized, explaining that she couldn't meet with others face to face. She hoped Sun Syed would understand. It was odd that Kaguya was hiding her face, and he wondered if she was just unattractive or trying to be all mysterious. So he inquired if she could treat illnesses, and Kavia agreed, prompting him to ask if she could check on Anna's health. He led Anna into the carriage where Kaguya pointed out that there were too many people around and it wasn't a good spot for an examination. The protagonist told everyone to clear out and asked Kaguya if it was a bit better now. Anna clung to Sunset a little scared about what might happen during the checkup, but he reassured her that there was no need to be afraid because he would be right there with her. After all, Anna's strength wouldn't hold out for more than a week at this pace. If they didn't find a solution soon, it was predicted that her health would start to deteriorate in less than a month. Sunset mentioned it would just be a quick check and told Anna to relax, since no danger would come her way. She ended up getting distracted by the adorable cats near the carriage. When Anna bent down to pet one, it suddenly grew so large it looked like a person. She was taken aback by the sight. The cat approached and opened its mouth as if to swallow Anna, which made her call out for Sunsaid's help. The cat swallowed Anna's head, leaving Sunsaid in shock, and he commanded it to spit her out right away. He sent the cats flying and questioned what Kaguya thought she was doing with those cats. He intended to warn her to make that ridiculous cat spit Anna out, or else there would be consequences. The priestess urged him to calm down. This was merely a method to assess Anna's condition, and that's how Kaguya discovered that she was under a cruel curse and that her body might have perished a long time ago. She realized that something was keeping her alive through other means, and the protagonist asked what that had to do with anything. He just wanted her to let Anna go right now. His patience was wearing thin, and he finally broke the carriage, causing Kavia to emerge from it. The protagonist was taken aback as the priestess was startled by the destruction of her carriage, nervously glancing around to see if anyone had witnessed it. This was the human world. Sunsaid asked if she was all right, but Kaguya shrank back in fear. Bandy covered her head with a helmet, and she fell silent, which made the protagonist wonder if she had some sort of phobia. Just for kicks, he removed her helmet, which scared her again to the point where Kaguya used an ability to hide. He was somewhat impressed by what he was witnessing and asked her where Anna was. Then Kaguya tossed a seal in his direction. From the seal emerged Anna, who returned to Sunsayed's arms, merely asleep and mumbling that something was delicious. Sunsayed asked what the priestess had done to her. Kaguya said she had only put her to sleep, just giving her nice dreams. Kavia asked if he didn't want to know the purpose of the curse inside her. Sunsaid inquired what it was. Kaguya explained that the curse's purpose was to steal talents, and its source was in her heart. It must have been cast by someone very close to her. Unless they found this person who cast the curse and broke it, it would continue. Otherwise, once the power in her body faded, her life would quickly come to an end. Kavia mentioned that there might be another way, and Sunsaid quickly pleaded with her to explain how it worked. She said the simplest way to do that was to replace her heart. But Sunsayed was somewhat taken aback by the suggestion. It wasn't as easy as swapping out a light bulb. Yet she still suggested such a thing. Even so, she mentioned that his partner had already been infused with Dragon Key anyway, so it would be better to use a dragon's heart. Subin was curious about that since he was the only dragon within 100 miles. He felt uneasy because nothing seemed to be able to save Anna's life. Then the priestess suggested that he could just track down the person who cursed his wife, but he replied that was easier said than done. If Cabria could handle the situation, he'd offer a hefty reward. She said she'd give it her best shot, but couldn't promise she'd find the one who cast the curse. Kaguya used a seal to try and pinpoint the one responsible for the curse, and the seal stuck to Anna's body. Suddenly, a massive creature appeared, scaring Kaguya out of her wits. The force of it even shattered the spot where she was hiding. Neon rushed to catch her before she could take a tumble and asked if she saw anything with her seal. The protagonist admitted that she had failed. The power behind the curse was just too strong and they might as well forget about it. Even if they found out who cast the curse by the time they tracked them down, it would be too late to make a difference. So Neon asked the system if there was a way to create more hearts. The system replied that it could whip up any kind of heart he wanted. The protagonist was taken aback, and the system continued, saying that mechanical, demonic, or even divine hearts were possible as long as there were enough system points. But Sion only had one heart that was uniquely his. In any case, creating something from scratch wasn't on the table. The system could only tweak an existing item, causing mutations based on the rules. Sunayan inquired about the lava heart, and the system clarified that it wasn't a real heart. A heart that regulates blood circulation in your body is different from the lava heart, which is merely an energy core. Subnian asked if giving his heart to Anna would lead to her demise, and the system confirmed that theoretically that would indeed be the case. The protagonist insisted on at least being told the modification plan to give his heart to Anna. He wanted to cut through all this back and forth since he was broke and had no points. Finally, the system revealed a hidden item in the shop called the golden fruit. While it could replicate body organs, it needed to be carefully cultivated in the right environment. Once it transformed into a heart, it could replace Sunayan's. He was stunned because the price was 100,000 points. It felt outrageous that the prices were skyrocketing. The system insisted it operated with integrity and nothing less. But naturally, the protagonist didn't buy that at all, as if it had any integrity. If that were the case, it could even rebrand itself as the Good Shepherd system. As he turned around, he noticed that Anna was still mumbling in her sleep that she'd always be with him no matter what. If they could somehow prolong the suppression of the curse and wait until that fruit became a heart, then Anna's curse could be lifted. Sunayan asked Caveat if they could extend the suppression time for Anna's curse since they couldn't track down who had cast it. The priestess mentioned there was a method in ancient texts, but it required complete honesty between the two of them. He immediately got emotional and asked exactly what he needed to do. Kavia asked if he was genuinely willing to go through with this. He chuckled, realizing that honesty wasn't as simple as it sounded, which made her agree that, as expected from the divine dragon, he was making the right call. In that case, they could now bind their link together. Sunayan asked if she would be joining them as well, and Kavia clarified that, truthfully, she was just an observer responsible for opening the formation and activating the bond. Once the bond was activated, the life force of the weaker one would be used to sustain the life of the one in peril, and she asked again if he felt ready. Sunny sensed it would be a pretty complicated situation, but agreed they could start right away because he was prepared. She mentioned that according to ancient records before beginning, a rope needed to be placed on the body. The protagonist was somewhat taken aback by this and asked if the ancient texts were really that thrilling and if they could even be trusted. Kabiya ignored his doubts and began the process. Few in the world could achieve the level of honesty required, all to reveal the secrets of the divine dragon's past without holding back, and she admired his courageous sincerity. Stay realized that complete honesty was a bit different from what he had in mind. It felt like letting someone peek at his internet browsing history. Although he asked her to stop, all she wanted was to spill the beans on the divine dragon's past, and she admired his bravery for being so open about it. Stay realized that being completely honest was a bit different than he thought. It felt like letting people peek at his internet search history. Even though he asked her to back off, Kavio was tearing up, feeling all the feels. While he admired the loyalty, it was just a bit too much to handle. In the Emerald Forest, a little girl named Anna called out to her sister Luna, running to give her a big hug after missing her like crazy and shedding some tears. But Luna was confused until it hit her she had become that girl who used to be Sunsen and had taken over Luna's body. Anna asked if Luna had brought her favorite sweets again, thinking she was just the cutest little thing. Her round, chubby cheeks were just begging to be squished. He remembered the priestess saying that bonds reveal people's deepest secrets, and this could be Anna's dream. He kept wondering what that felt like and touched her cheek, surprised at how soft Luna's body was. Anna stepped back a bit, looking scared, and he had to admit it was a pretty weird move on his part. Then Anna said she was worried she might wake up as a spirit and asked what that even meant. Out of nowhere, another girl came running in, asking why Anna had dashed off to the edge of the forest. There were dangerous monsters lurking around, plus Anna's sister was searching for her. The awakening ceremony had kicked off, and the 10 elders were waiting for her. Anna was shocked to hear from Gia that the awakening ceremony had started, and Gia reassured her not to stress. Anna would definitely awaken as a noble spirit, so the three of them headed back to where a crowd was gathered. Sunayan felt the dream shift scenes as expected. The setting changed based on the dreamer's viewpoint. A man told Anna this was her 10th awakening attempt and she should be getting the hang of it by now. If she flunked again, she'd lose her chance to keep studying at the elite academy and her family would be kicked out of the central area of the Emerald Forest. Anna nodded. Even though she felt down, she was determined to gain more insights. But the man called her a disgrace and slapped her across the face. 10 tries and still no success. What a waste of the precious resources granted by the great Emperor Shu. Anna was a total embarrassment to the spirits until Luna stepped up to confront the old man for his actions. After Luna defended Anna, the old man boldly declared that he would expel her and her family from the central region, forcing them to live outside the Emerald Forest. But Luna reassured Anna not to worry. They had managed to scare off those fools messing with her. A little later, Anna happily approached them, excited because she had found some fruit for them to munch on that day. She knew Luna must be starving. She froze when she spotted some eyes lurking in the darkness, saying she had wasted too many resources and would have to make up for it. They were all half-beasts, but even so, Anna had 10 chances to awaken, while the others only had 3. The 3 demi-humans pressured her, saying if they had 10 chances to awaken, they would have done it ages ago. It was all Anna's fault for squandering it. Everything was on her, so she had to pay the price. Anna fell to the ground begging for forgiveness, but Luna jumped in to fight them off, telling them to scram right now. If they dared to intimidate her again, people like them would be in big trouble. So she led Anna back to the house they had built together. And honestly, it wasn't bad at all for a first try. Then the scene suddenly shifted and the protagonist noticed the abrupt change. He wondered if Anna had been bullied again, hiding inside the closet while Luna went out to see if anyone was trying to pick a fight with her sister. But then an arm suddenly emerged from her body and he realized they were the same hands that had attacked Kavio before. In the real world, the protagonist woke up as a dragon and saw Hannah crying, begging him not to die because of her. Beside them, a figure said it was pointless. The divine dragon wasn't going to wake up, and Anna turned frightened in that direction. It was the priestess explaining that the divine dragon had fallen into a deep sleep to save her from her curse. Anna couldn't understand why he needed to do that since she didn't think she was worth sacrificing for. Sunayan sensed there were still perks to pretending to be asleep and accepted her hugs. Anna asked how they could wake the dragon up, and Kabivia suggested maybe they could just try talking to him. So Anna said she had a weird dream. She dreamed of a shiny iron board and some images of women in swimsuits. Anna chimed in, saying she had a weird dream. She dreamt of a shiny iron board and some ladies in swimsuits. I overheard someone chatting about a 32 gigabyte compressed file and some browsing history. Those were terms I had never encountered before, but they sounded impressive enough to jolt Anna out of her relief. Kaga was taken aback because talking to him had actually worked. The truth was, while Suns was diving into Anna's past, she had caught glimpses of his as well. Anna asked what he had just said a moment ago, and Sunayan brushed it off, claiming it was nothing, just him lamenting his lost youth. In the sacred temple of the royal capital, they erected a statue in honor of the divine dragon, and Celestina proudly showed it to Sunayan to demonstrate their reverence. She planned to gaze at his heroic figure every day, offering her blessings and prayers just like she always did. Sunny couldn't help but wonder if she could have at least picked a better pose than that one, which was anything but dignified. Celestina then asked if he could stick around a little longer this time. He mentioned that he thought this place was stable now and that he should head back. After all, Anna was keeping a close eye on everything and clearly got annoyed whenever Celestina got too cozy or sent any suggestive vibes. Still, she felt sad because Sunsen was leaving so soon and said she would miss him. Back at the dragon's lair, the protagonist realized that his time away wasn't so bad after all. Hardly any time had passed since he left. Until then, the monsters were living orderly lives and Porikuri was moved to see that his lord had finally returned. The protagonist asked them to hold on because they could chat about some things later. He was feeling a bit worn out from the trip. When Sun lay down, Anna asked him what was wrong, concerned that he might be feeling under the weather. The protagonist replied that he was fine. just a little tired after everything that had gone down. He felt like he might have a fever and his head was spinning. So he asked the system if dragons could actually get sick, and the system suggested something to help ease his discomfort. The protagonist was surprised because he was experiencing a milder version of Anna's pain. It was hard to fathom how much she must have suffered before. That's when he froze, noticing Anna approaching. She told him not to move. She was just checking his body temperature. She acknowledged that he was warm, and Sunayan pointed out that a dragon's body temperature was still different from a regular person's. Anna stepped back, stammering that she knew that, and asked him to wait a moment because she would whip up some medicinal soup. She recalled Kugmuya mentioning earlier that if San ever felt unwell, he could try the insects since they were all nutritious. Next to her, Celestina was shocked, asking what she was doing with those things, and Anna proudly declared it was medicinal soup for Sunayan. These were just some medicinal ingredients. Meanwhile, in the beginner village of Sakura, too, the humans were on the mend. A man was captivated by a cobalt head and pondered where he should showcase it. Suddenly, another man burst into the ruins announcing that a player named George wanted to see him. He complained because he was enjoying the art and told him to scram immediately. Yet the subordinate insisted that his lord might want to hear this news. That's because the person in question knew the whereabouts of a dragon, and the man became intrigued, ordering them to bring this person inside. Meanwhile, in the dragon's lair, Anna returned to find Sunsen with a mischievous grin, ready to wake him up and give him his medicine. He remarked that he used to endure all his ailments alone, but now he had someone who cared about him. He felt touched by Anna's thoughtfulness when he saw the soup she had prepared. Sunsen asked if it wasn't a bit too early to play dead to the point of having to eat that. Still, Anna urged the protagonist to drink it quickly as she had been preparing it for a long time. Selena appeared questioning whether Sunsen really intended to disregard everything she had prepared. After all, she had spent the entire night taking care of him. The protagonist chuckled, agreeing that he would never do that, even though it was true he had been smelling something burnt for a while and was curious about what it was. But anyway, if he died, nothing would change. He gulped down the soup all at once without giving it much thought. The taste was so awful, it felt like death itself, and he seriously suspected Anna was getting back at him for forcing her to take medicine in the past. Anna smiled, telling the dragon not to drink so fast. There was still an entire cauldron for them to enjoy together, which left him in shock. Back in Sakura Village, a player mentions he heard the guy was super brave. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his knee, forcing him to kneel. The man smirks because he can't stand the sight of weaklings. He'd heard that the player got his butt kicked by a bunch of low-level monsters back in Sakura Village. The player stands up and insists it wasn't exactly like that. Those monsters were probably influenced by the Black Dragon and had become way stronger, practically demonic. So he asks the man if he can tag along. He promises to lead him to the Black Dragon's lair and spill the beans on everything. The man asks if the player really didn't know that the Black Dragon he was talking about was at the top of the world boss list. Style questions why he wanted to join them today, and the player agrees since Sunan had a half-beast with him. She was quite the looker. The player jokes that the man would probably want her head for his collection. He shows a picture of the half-demon, and the man's interest is instantly piqued. She had silky fur, fluffy ears, and pure white, an absolute masterpiece. He imagines displaying her head on the right side and the dragon's head on the left side of his showcase. The man gets pumped. Picturing both their heads next to his throne, the player thinks the real show is about to kick off no matter who comes out on top. That night, Sunayan and the girls were all snuggled up together, and he caught Selena in a compromising position, squeezing something she shouldn't be. He couldn't help but wonder what on earth she was dreaming to be acting like that in front of everyone. Anna looked completely wiped out after spending all night working on the medicine. She definitely needed some rest. So he gently picks up Selena and moves her away from Anna, hoping the girl was truly asleep. Even though yesterday's medicine tasted like garbage, he managed to choke it all down and felt a lot better today. Poor Ori showed up in the cave to report that the prisoners from the last battle were being held on the back mountain and wanted to know how they should handle them. Nine had totally forgotten about the prisoners of war and asked how many there were. Ori replied there were a total of 213 prisoners. That was a scary number, and the protagonist wondered what they had been eating while he was gone all this time. Porticure said he had no clue and hadn't even thought about it, but if they did nothing, they might end up munching on grass and tree roots. They were gnawing on the roots and stripping the flowers. Hearing all this made Sanai worry that none of them had accidentally starved to death, and he said they should go check on the situation. They had modeled the prison after the architectural style of Sakura Village number 1 of the Wind Prison. Not only that, but he had his men take turns watching the cells every day, each of those demons and beasts, though quiet was restrained by the dark house to keep things from getting chaotic. Sunayan agreed it was a smart move. Poor Curie seemed to have a knack for construction. The grass was practically flattened to the ground. The soil was cultivated like a machine had done it. The results were impressive. The protagonist thought it would be a great chance to make them farm. The living conditions and treatment for prisoners of war should be top-notch. Horikir was amazed. He had never thought of any of that. But Psune was someone who could think of everything. He asked what exactly they should plant, so the protagonist opened the system to check the available options. He suggested they could plant potatoes. They were super easy to grow, and the system recognized when he bought a large quantity of potato spores. Meanwhile, some guys were inside a cave, munching on meat after hunting some animals. 2 of them served as a boss. They were supposed to handle the meat shield, but they had run out of food for the month. One guy tells the other 2, "Oh, I do to take our boss." The 2 walked away, sighing in frustration. They thought that following the strongest guy on the team to the starting village would mean living the high life. But they never imagined that 1 month's worth of food for a normal person would last only a week because of how much he devoured. The 2 figured they should sneak away while they still could. Sooner or later, they would end up being eaten alive. Suddenly, a man appears asking what the 2 were chatting about, scaring them into quickly changing the subject. They mentioned they just got an invitation from the second Sakura village and were just wondering if he wanted to go. Meanwhile, the chief of village 2 is chatting with the others, and 2 of them wonder if someone important is making them wait in this meeting. The chief tells everyone to hold their laughter. It's not that he forgot to invite them. He just didn't think about it at all. Just then, a huge figure appears behind him and asks if they were all gossiping about him now that he's finally been invited. The chief jumps in surprise, turning around and asking who's there, totally shocked to see him lurking behind his chair. Nobody even noticed him sneak up. The chief recognizes him as the shadow assassin David. The distant mountain truly lives up to its name. The chief introduces himself as Waldy, leader of the distant mountain, and welcomes everyone. Next to him, one player is taken aback that a guy that big could be an assassin, which gets David all riled up, but Waldy quickly diffuses the situation. He kicks the player, telling David it's his fault since his watchdog didn't bark properly. Nearby, David grabs the boy, chuckling because he really is one of a kind, and the player freezes in terror at the sight. Waldy mentions that if David likes him, he can have him. Just then, another man strolls into the meeting, commenting that it's been ages since they last saw each other. Waldy says now that everyone's here, he'll get right to the point. The reason he invited all the players is to hunt the dragon boss. The players go still at that, asking if he's talking about the black dragon that recently became a world boss. The weaker player thinks he's asking if he's talking about the black dragon that recently became a world boss. The weaker player thinks he's there to pledge loyalty to Waldy, but even so, he feels like a nobody. He can't be blamed for what happens next. The player tells Waldy he knows how to capture the black dragon because Anna is a stunning creature. If they capture her, they could also snag the black dragon and his lord could secure 2 perfect trophies. The player thinks they're all idiots. Capturing Anna would only make things worse, and they'd just be waiting for their cruel demise. Meanwhile, Anna sneezes and wonders what's going on. Maybe she's still tired and coming down with something. After all, she spent the whole afternoon brewing medicine the night before. She can't keep doing this or she'll worry him. He's concerned she might be getting sick again, but she insists it's nothing. She just felt a sudden chill of malice. Still, Sunayan can't sense any malice. He doesn't detect any outsiders trying to invade his space or anything like that. Or maybe it's because Anna is feeling under the weather, and this is a hint that he should hug her and comfort her for her supposed sentimentality. Then Anna says she has something for him, and it's definitely something she's wanted for a long time. She shows him a key and asks if it's a key to a treasure chest. Anna confirms she got the treasure chest key from the mage Melinda. It really is something special after all. Even so, Selena reveals she has a lot more keys than that. Anna's keys aren't anything to write home about. Soon, Ian is left speechless because they suddenly have that many keys all at once. Selena laughs. She just pieced together Jason's body parts and broke them again to get the keys. Meanwhile, Melinda is stuck in prison complaining to Jason that it's all his fault. If it weren't for his false info, she'd still be the great leader. Jason retorts that she's the great useless one and still has the audacity to blame him like that. Melinda thinks this can't go on. She needs to come up with a way to escape quickly, so she leans in to talk to Jason, trying to charm him, which works like a charm, and he admits he only has 500 invasion points left. All his other points went to buying keys, but he refuses to part with them no matter what. Melinda is furious. They're practically dead in there and could still use resurrection. They just need to hand over a random key to trick the girl from before. Jason gets annoyed because there's no way he's doing that again. His limbs are broken for a reason now. Then she has a light bulb moment, suggesting that Jason give her all his invasion points, and after they escape, she'll come back to save him. Meanwhile, Waldy is keeping an eye on the Black Dragon's lair and tells George to go ahead and capture Anna, which shocks him. George gets jittery about it, but David quickly says he can't refuse. If he wants to be part of the crew, he's got to show what he's made of. After all, capturing Anna was his brainchild, and he needs to prove he's worth it. But he shouldn't sweat it because his talent is pretty unique. George gets hit with a wave of fear when the assassin talks like that. Then while the guards are catching some Z's, George sneaks into the lair. He's shocked that none of them recognize him. As soon as he steps inside, he spots Anna right away, the very person they've been hunting from the get-go. Meanwhile, Melinda trades points with Jason and manages to break free, and he tells her she could use the chaos to her advantage. He asks her not to forget to come back and rescue him, and she promises she'll return to get him out of that mess. And at that very moment, Jason regrets it because Melinda chokes him to death, slipping away just in time as Anna collapses to the ground. One of the half-beasts comes over to help her, and she thanks him because she accidentally twisted her ankle. He's confused about why she's near the prison now, and Anna mentions she dropped something when she showed up earlier in the day. She also wanted to see if everyone was keeping a close watch, and the beast man assures her he was on guard duty. Anna points to the side, saying she didn't see anyone on watch, and he quickly dashes back to his post. Truth is, that wasn't Anna, but Melinda in disguise. She bought a metamorphosis potion, and now everyone sees her as that person. This way, Melinda has a shot at escaping, maybe even getting close to the dragon to take him out herself. While she's on the move, she unexpectedly runs into George, who seizes the chance to grab her, thinking she's the real Anna. Meanwhile, a kobold reports to Sunayan that he just spotted Anna, and he responds that's impossible since she's been there the whole time. But when he turns around, he realizes Anna has vanished and quickly stands up, puzzled about where she could have gone so fast. The protagonist takes off in search of Anna, and the players point to the sky when they see him soaring above. They start to panic because they think they've been spotted. But David reassures them there's nothing to worry about since no one can see them up there. Another guy mentions that Sunayan must be on the hunt for Anna. It looks like George has kept his promise. Waldy comments that the guys seem pretty handy, but the other guy says their situation is still looking grim. It seemed different from what the system described, looking tougher, and it was a 4th level magic beast. Walderly draws his sword, suggesting this must be the strongest magic beast he's ever faced, and they'd all fall victim to its bloodlust without hesitation, even if it were a 6th level dragon. Among dragons, there shouldn't be any difference. It was still just a lamb waiting for slaughter, not to mention they had a secret weapon. Sunayan swoops down and lands, calling out for Anna until he turns and sees someone sprinting toward him. It must have been a stealth suit that kept him from noticing earlier. While Dolly attacks, before he can even say to hold up everything, explodes thrilled that he took him out with one hit. The dragon boss was a joke. The protagonist drops in from above, asking if that was really all there was to it. And Waldoy freezes in shock because the dragon was supposed to be below. Suddenly he realizes his sword has vanished along with his bloodlust, and Neon asks if he's referring to that broken blade. He throws it away, grumbling that the guy was incredibly dishonorable. His leg goes numb and he even stumbles. Waldy never thought something like that was possible, and he gets notifications saying his power hit the target. But the attack flops. His bloodlust and Waldy's sword have been taken. Now he's got nothing left to fight back with. So Nyan calls him a despicable insect for daring to invade his territory and tells him he should just get ready to die right now. When he looks back, the protagonist attacks him in the eye, but he doesn't feel anything because he's shocked to see he's been shot by a bullet. in the distance. The sniper is stunned because the dragon's scales are so tough that his bullet only managed to graze the skin. Still, he suddenly vanishes and the sniper wonders where he went, only for the dragon himself to pop up behind him asking if he's been looking for him. He turns around trying to bolt and shoots at the protagonist, who uses his ability to snatch the man's weapon at that exact moment. The player is left dumbfounded because his weapon goes haywire and he can't use it. Just as Sunayan was about to take a bite out of him, Walvoli chimed in, asking Wayati if he really wanted Anna to meet her end. The girl was being held captive by Waldi, prompting him to let the player go and demand Waldoy release Anna, or else he'd make them wish they were never born. Waldo was last to act because Sunsai and Rue were downright terrifying, and he shoved Anna, daring him to save her if he had any guts. The girl tumbled down, crying for help, terrified of heights, and he rushed to catch her before she could get hurt. When he glanced up, he suddenly found himself trapped in a magical circle, and despite his efforts, he couldn't break free. It was a simple trap that the protagonist couldn't believe was being used against him like this. Just then, David charged at him, claiming he should brace himself to feel the full force of his assassin skills and end up as nothing but a pile of meat. The sniper realized they might have been duped by their own system. Judging by its strength and looks, this black dragon didn't seem like a 4th-level creature. Sumayan's tail managed to shatter the magic barrier, which could even hold back 6 powerful demons, and the armor on this black dragon was so thick that they feared the trap wouldn't hold for much longer. Dully ordered everyone to attack together before that could happen, and they all unleashed their assaults on the protagonist trapped in the formation. Subnom figured that the dragon's language magic wouldn't work inside the formation, and he couldn't even use dragon breath with Anna around. Anna thought that this formation couldn't hold players, so she and Melinda should make a break for it. Melinda seized the opportunity to escape, but then something struck her from behind, leaving her stunned that such a thing could happen. The protagonist and everyone else turned in shock at the sight, and Waldoy angrily demanded to know who committed such a heinous act. One of the mages froze, realizing that Waldy had ordered everyone to attack with full force and they accidentally hit the girl. Waldy shouted that he told them to attack the black dragon, not the girl, and Sunayan erupted in fury, vowing to take them all down. Everyone was terrified at his rage and wanted to bolt, while the protagonist broke free from the barrier he was stuck in. Sunayan unleashed flames at the mage, who killed Anna, and David used his ability to create multiple copies of himself. He charged at the protagonist, attempting to take him out, attacking from all angles at once. David thought it was a shame to use that ability just to escape, but at least he could keep the black dragon busy for a bit. In that moment, David started running, telling the system he wanted to break free and unlock the fusion of hearts. The Silver Moon Forest erupted in a massive explosion of flames, fueled by the black dragon's rage. The system congratulated the protagonist. He had successfully wiped out all the invading players in just 1 minute. Thus, the mission was added, granting him 15,000 system reward points, and later, Sun's return to the dragon's lair. Porker showed up to report that Anna had made it back home, and Sunshian replied that he was already aware of that. He figured Anna should have returned as a soul to the Emerald Forest by now, but Porokuri was confused, repeatedly asking if he was quoting some deep wisdom. After all, Anna was blissfully munching on some honey she found in the swamp. She appeared all cheerful, saying that now San wouldn't find his medicine bitter anymore and wouldn't complain. The protagonist wept, thinking he was losing his mind. Longing was one thing, but this was something else entirely. Sunayan touched Anna, feeling it was an incredibly realistic hallucination, and Porokuri reported that 2 human players who were prisoners had vanished. They also discovered a vial of illusion potion inside, and Nelson realized that the mage Melinda had transformed into Anna to make her escape. Now, the protagonist felt relieved to see that Anna was alive, which made her furious because while she was gone, he was out causing chaos. Spinayan got nervous, trying to explain himself, spending some time detailing what had happened. Meanwhile, King Amlos received a report from his soldiers stating that the people of the Airline Empire had arrived. It seemed they all came demanding the return of the mage, Mesant, and Amles was irritated because they had the nerve to come back and make demands. Masand was a completely useless guy. They expanded their forces and offered him money, yet they hadn't even seen a single dragon scale. Not only that, but Masant never showed up again and likely took off far away after everything they had offered. Amlas instructs them to inform the Empire that Masanti was eaten by the dragon and was a total flop. But just before that could go down, a wound appears. This was Amlas's queen, and the king is stunned to see she had made her return. The queen mentions she heard something significant had gone down in Amlus and wrapped up her visits with relatives and friends before coming back. The queen tells the king that she heard they needed to cure the prince's illness. He thought it was necessary to borrow someone from the Aryan Empire. He agrees that's what went down, but he still feels jittery because he wants to clarify what really happened. But she just slaps the king across the face for causing a huge mess while she was off handling other affairs. Now that Masanti had kicked the bucket in their territory, that kind of behavior toward the empire was like poking a bear and could spark a war between the two nations. The king whines, saying he just wanted to fix the prince's little problem. The queen brushes him off and tells the soldier to leave and invite the envoy in. The warrior dashed off, and in walked the guests from the empire, greeting the royal family and complimenting how the queen was indeed as stunning as the rumors suggested. For a long time he had heard that the king of Anlos was a complete idiot, which is why the general had sent the mage Mant to take care of things. But still, it was the most useless of all mages who ended up there, completely unaware that a queen of such beauty was residing in that place. The queen thanks the envoy for his kind words, and he states that, with all due respect, he heard the dragon-slaying army flopped, and no one came back alive, and he asked if she was ready to hand over Masanti, or if they would offer some kind of compensation. The king stutters, trying to respond, and the queen interjects that the dragon-slaying army indeed failed, but Masanti wasn't necessarily dead. There were soldiers who had been found who claimed they hadn't seen Masant before entering the Silver Moon Forest. The envoy questions if they're suggesting Masanti bailed on his mission, and she chuckles at the notion, asking him not to get the wrong idea. After all, their goal was to settle everything peacefully from the start. They sent people to look into what happened, and she suggests the envoy could stick around a bit longer. If the great mage Mant truly bit the dust while slaying the dragon, they could discuss some form of compensation. He replies that he hopes things can be wrapped up quickly. He couldn't just hang around waiting much longer. Meanwhile, in the dragon's lair, Sunayan is fuming because Anna hasn't talked to him for 2 whole days. He asked the system which rookie villages were nearby. He planned to wipe them all out one by one so they'd never bother him again. The system laments that doing so would mark him as a permanent boss and create a teleport matrix for players to use. That way they could always pop over to Sunayan whenever they felt like it. They could teleport directly to the Silver Moon Forest through the teleport matrix. This shocked the protagonist. Originally, he wanted to take out the rookie villages to avoid future headaches, but that was even riskier. But if he couldn't attack rookie villages, he was at a loss for how to earn system points and level up. Meanwhile, in the Envy City Dynasty, Isri was taken aback when he saw the system had updated the boss information. He wonders if the Black Dragon had been taken down or if even stronger monsters had started to show up. It seemed the issue of facing the Black Dragon would have to be postponed. He hoped at least that the dragon was still alive because Sunayan was a worthy opponent. Back in the dragon's lair, it was detected that Sunayan's exposure had decreased for unknown reasons, and he should look into the cause himself. With a hint, the system suggests that the drop in exposure might be linked to the emergence of heroic figures or epic monsters. Sunayan dramatically asked the system if it couldn't just say directly what it was. After all, they had known each other for a long time. He said the system was being so coy that they couldn't keep going like this, and the system hesitates a bit before responding. The system could only detect that exposure had dropped. The specific reason happened globally and was beyond its detection capabilities. After all, the system wasn't a satellite, which made the protagonist grasp its limitations. With the exposure going down, he could finally get back to upgrading the rookie village. Right now, raking in cash was his top priority. So he tells poor Curie to rally the troops and gear up for a new fight. Curie nods, asking where they're headed. He responds that they're off to the north side of the Morgan Desert to take on Rookie Village Sekira number 2. Then he checks with the system to see if there's any upgrade that could boost him and his crew. The protagonist wonders if it's possible that when he evolves, his crew evolves with him, and the system gives him the thumbs up. There's an upgrade that fits the bill. It's on page 14,879, item 67 of neural modifications. The project is called Basic Swarm Will, and it'll set him back 100,000 system points to activate. Once he installs it, it'll trigger the simultaneous evolution of 1,000 units whose life level is lower than his. He wonders if that kind of upgrade is really suitable for a dragon like him. He tells the system that its current prices are way too steep, and the system replies that it's just being fair and square, no haggling allowed. Meanwhile, in the Queen's palace, she's getting ready when someone pops in to greet her. The girl is Sal, and the Queen sends the maids away. No one gets to come in without her say-so. Salisto mentions she's wearing the bracelet her sister left behind before vanishing and asks the queen if she's sure she can help find her sister. The queen agrees, but only if she can pay the price. Saliso responds that she can offer 10 years of her youth if it helps her find her sister Evelyn. The queen then walks over to her mirror and places Saltol's bracelet inside it, revealing a scene. Sunayan of Evelyn's lifeless body. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his cobalt army are marching, and poor Curry asks if they can take a breather. It's scorching out. Sunayan replies there's no need, even though he's feeling the heat too. He's got a temperature regulator to keep his body cool, but it's still sweltering. Sunayan suddenly remembers that Anna and the others are still on his back and starts to worry. Anna and Selena are feeling the effects of mild heat stroke from the heat, so the protagonist grabs some water to cool them down. Anna complains about being uncomfortable in her wet clothes, and Sunan even steps in to help her out, but then they hear a girl's voice calling for help as 2 level 25 players approach her. They're mocking the girl because no one's coming to her rescue, and Sunayan is shocked to see that both are Indian players. Even though the map has never shown a starting village from any nearby players, he wonders if it's a system glitch. The system responds that, since he's encountered this situation, it'll provide an explanation. Players from different worlds have different faction abilities. The Indian faction's ability is to conceal the starting village's location. It's known that the Secura faction's ability is martial spirit, boosting team morale and giving a fearless mindset. Meanwhile, the Pretty faction's ability is technological analysis, enhancing technological creativity, and the host might have seen the firearms they created. Nam is impressed because faction abilities can be so amazing. No wonder nothing showed up on the map. So, Nian asks what the starting village abilities are for other factions, and the system says that since he hasn't had close contact with players from other factions, it's unknown. Meanwhile, the girl has her clothes torn and thinks they're asking for her demise. But before she can fight back, it's Sun Sen who jumps in right away. He takes down both men, while the girl is shocked to be saved by a dragon. He holds her while Solace is thrilled because she finally found him. That was quicker than expected. Shortly after, the 2 players emerge from the water, clueless about who dared to send them flying like that. As they climb out of the water, they realize it's a massive dragon, so he simply attacks the guys and sends them packing. Sala is still pondering how people say dragons are naturally lustful. If she wanted to get close to the black dragon, seduction would be a solid strategy. She rushes to thank Sun Sayan for saving her life and introduces herself, offering herself to him. Sun Sayan sighs, and Salil thinks he can't even hold back now, mentioning that he might just surrender to her beauty. But then out of nowhere, Salil noticed that Sunan had disappeared from where he was just a moment ago. He introduced himself, saying he always did good deeds without leaving a name, but now he was planning to take off. Stalasil said it didn't matter where he went or how far he ran. She was determined to take him out herself eventually. Back in the Morgan Desert, poor Curie realized the desert was just ahead, and they kept trudging through the sands. The desert was super dangerous, with fierce magical beasts lurking around every corner. This got Sunsen curious, and he reminded Pori to keep in mind the motto of his army. If they didn't unleash their fury, they'd end up just as dead. Poor Kuri nodded, recognizing the wisdom in that. Meanwhile, in the lair of the bronze dragon, a massive beast was flexing its power. Subnayan caught Porir's attention and told everyone to take a breather. Linda asked why they suddenly halted. He thought he caught a whiff of hot metal in the air. That smell reminded him a lot of the copper dragons he knew. He felt a chill run down his spine and asked poor Curry if they could steer clear of the area. Parikwa replied that they had found the map for the only straightforward and safest route through the northern part of the desert. Sugnian got it and decided to go check it out, leaving Anna and poor Curry behind, promising he'd be back soon. As he soared through the sky, the scent intensified, and the power of the bronze dragon was still seeping out. When he landed, Sumayan realized, as expected, that a bronze dragon was indeed there. Dragons are known to be territorial. Good thing he didn't let Anna and the others see any of this. But before he knew it, he felt Selena on his back. She seemed to have just woken up, asking if they had just arrived. He questioned why she was still there, and she giggled, saying she had accidentally dozed off on him, but then asked why they were still in the desert. Before they could process it, the bronze dragon appeared, and Selena was taken aback, asking if it was maybe a relative of his. The bronze dragon introduced himself as the Lord of the Desert and angrily demanded to know why they had invaded his turf. He explained that he and his crew just wanted to pass through, not realizing they were stepping on his toes. If possible, the protagonist asked if he could toss some gold coins as a peace offering for the trouble he caused. The dragon responded with a hefty fine of 100,000 gold coins and insisted that someone be left behind to keep him company. He was shocked by the amount, but understood the point. Still, he wondered if that dragon was part of some reincarnation scheme. He kept thinking it was too easy to just hand over cash to others. The dragon mentioned that the last guy hadn't spoken for 3 days, and he wanted a replacement. The guy in question was a human he was holding, and Selena shivered, hoping they wouldn't look her way. She had no intention of sticking around, no way, no how. So Sunsen told the other dragon he could offer money, but he wouldn't leave anyone behind. Considering they were both dragons, he should just let his crew pass. But the dragon was still fuming. He was just a humble 5-colored dragon and still dared to compare himself to a metal dragon like him. The dragon grumbled that it was truly a shame. At that point, he got ready and asked if they couldn't just talk this out, preparing for a fight. The dragon approached, laughing as if it were a joke. A little dragon like him was challenging him. Selena warned him to be careful as the dragon launched an attack right away, and the protagonist dodged so fast he vanished from sight. Sunayan complained about being way too slow and took a bite out of the other dragon's neck while Selena got her buddy ready to help him out. Sunayan asked if she could be a bit more careful since she ended up trapping both the dragon and herself in the net. Luckily, the dragon managed to dodge just in time and made its escape. They were all about to be squashed under his feet, and the protagonist mentioned that the sandstorm he kicked up was so intense he could barely keep his eyes open. Just in the nick of time, he saved Selena from getting smacked by a rock. This sand was a real pain because they couldn't see a thing in this mess. The dragon was using some bronze contraption that was way beyond magic, and he asked the system if there was a way to modify it so he could see through the yellow sand. The system informed him that he could trade in for the all-seeing eye, which would significantly broaden his visual range and allow him to see through small objects costing only 70,000 points. Sunsayan was short on cash and inquired if there was an alternative. In that case, he could temporarily solidify the upgrade for 3 minutes. This would only set him back 10% of the total cost, so he urged the system to get on with it. Soon enough, he successfully completed the upgrade. Now, the protagonist had the ability to see through sand for 3 minutes. They had to act fast and wrap this up. The dragon thought it was something extraordinary, but Sunayan quickly kept his mouth shut, believing it was powerful, yet it couldn't escape the grip of the Desert Lord. Suddenly, he was pelted by stones and wondered why they were coming back at him. So he chuckled, asking if the dragon was hungry, because he had plenty to share, ready to toss even more stones its way. Sunshin didn't even bother trying to remember his name, since it was too long, which only fueled the dragon's rage as it felt insulted. The dragon was furious again, and he pondered what would happen next. Then he realized too late that they were standing on quicksand. He couldn't grab onto anything to escape. So Selena pointed out that they were sinking, and this was a serious issue. When Selena woke up, she found herself in a cave and screamed when a skeleton appeared above her. Meanwhile, Sunayan also woke up coughing. After all the sand had filled his lungs, it was pitch black. Selena couldn't see a thing, but she wondered if the dragon was still alive and started to walk, calling out to see if Sunshine could hear her. Another skeleton grabbed her from behind, making her scream again. As she used her staff to push the creatures away, questioning why there were so many corpses, Selena kept moving and ended up tripping. Sunshin thought he heard something, but figured it was just his stomach growling. He was curious about how Selena was faring. The system hadn't reported any deaths, so she must still be alive. The system mentioned that wasn't the right way to use it anyway, and asked how far down he was, suggesting maybe the dragon could break through the sand to the surface. The system advised him to forget that idea. This was a sea of sand, and the structure was incredibly unstable. Trying that would only lead to his demise. So he decided it was better to keep moving. There had to be an exit from this place somewhere. That's when the system detected an unknown presence ahead, and he asked if it was dangerous. The system replied that it was unknown. It couldn't determine if it was dangerous or not. Sunayan was surprised at how chatty the system had become lately. When he looked, he spotted a kind of crystal encasing a large serpent skull. There was a person trapped inside the crystal. There was writing on it, and he asked the system if that was the unknown presence it had mentioned. But the system remained silent, leaving the protagonist worried that the signal might be weak. Meanwhile, Selena sensed a kind of ancient magical script. It was something incredibly rare that many mages would fight over, even if it meant risking their lives. So she felt incredibly fortunate when she laid eyes on it. As a mage who studied the law, she could decipher the writing as us. Sure. Garrison bed bond key. Kisidet guy see this BSO. Get your double It was possible that all the corpses around were casualties of that heavy magic. Selena wondered if the writings were all stained with blood. It could be some sort of death message. She noticed the words danger, demon, and seal, a warning not to look at Chesadella, not to gaze into her eyes. Sume was now staring directly at Chesia and was taken aback when she suddenly opened her eyes. Meanwhile, Selena kept walking and suddenly felt something invade her eyes. Feeling pain, the entire cave began to tremble, and they were clueless about what was happening. And suddenly, Selena found herself plummeting through the ground, landing right on top of Sun Union. Selena immediately felt warmth and realized it was coming from Sunayan, who was beneath her for some reason. She rushed over and hugged him, relieved to finally be reunited, which boosted her favorability by 50 points. He asked how she fell from above, and Selena explained that after being dragged by quicksand, she ended up in the sand cave above. Inside, she discovered many corpses of friends and necromancers registered in the ancient dark magic of the place. Stubniam grew curious and asked if there was a way out, but unfortunately she replied no, although she mentioned she found something written by a wizard before he met his end. He mentioned that a demon was sealed there, and Suda pointed at the girl encased in crystal, wondering if they were talking about her. No wonder she was trapped in ice crystals. Now Selena realized that what was written earlier was indeed accurate. The countless mage corpses above were likely all due to her. Selena sighed, thinking that everything would be fine as long as Sunayan didn't make eye contact with her. Nothing should go wrong. At that moment, the protagonist froze and jokingly asked what might happen if he did. She looked a bit shocked and asked if he had accidentally done something forbidden. Soon after, the crystal around the girl cracked, startling both of them. A powerful energy radiated from her, even breaking through Sunshin's defensive scales. The girl smiled, finally free, and asked who was there while Neon and Selena hid. The system detected a special female NPC and suggested he pursue a relationship with her. Naeem was taken aback because the system was still active, spouting completely unbelievable things. The system encouraged him to believe in himself, stated it would withdraw for now, and he could call on it if he needed anything. It wasn't long before the demon found them and warned her to run. So they quickly made their escape. Meanwhile, the bronze dragon sat on his throne when he heard that the black dragon still had an army in his territory. It was a joke. Sune was dead, and the low-level monsters in his army probably didn't even realize it. Suddenly, they felt the ground shake, and a massive bone creature emerged from the surface, which Anna recognized as the direction it had taken. Her heart raced, and she hoped he wouldn't get into trouble while he was there. In the desert, Sunayan confirmed that the girl was indeed an SS rank NPC, and she asked why they were running since she didn't plan to eat them. The power of that woman was terrifying, even in her weakened state. She effortlessly escaped from the underground sea of sand. The woman perched on Sunsai, commenting that his scales were indeed perfect and comfortable to sit on. The tingling sensation made him wonder if she was after his body or something, but he had no intention of giving in. The girl claimed it was all the fault of those pesky wizards who coveted her pet snake and suggested that Sununion become her new pet. She could call him L Long. He was shocked because it seemed like the remains of the previous snake he saw in the cave had belonged to her. Sunyan could picture himself obeying her orders, which didn't sound too bad. But then he stood up, asserting that he was a dragon. This caused her to tumble hard into the sand. Disobedience wasn't good for a pet, and her favorability dropped by 10 points. So Niam was stunned and wondered what had just happened. He never knew someone's favorability could drop like that. The system replied that Sumon's conquest target was quite dangerous. Favorability would be very unstable until reaching the first stage. He narrowly dodged her attacks, and even the bronze dragon was frozen in shock as he watched his lair suddenly catch fire and be destroyed. The bronze dragon pointed at the demon in fury, angry because she was still alive and had even helped destroy his lair with his own hands. Sun Saiyan wondered if he could believe his eyes because the girl clearly wasn't helping at all. But if he insisted it couldn't be helped, and the girl ended up becoming the boss, if the dragon had any guts, he would have to face her first. Butsion advised that the bronze dragon couldn't win even if he tried, and the dragon was in disbelief because he thought he could just blame her. Even so, he intended to show who the real Dragon Lord was. Sunayan urged him not to act rashly, but it was too late, and he sighed because young ones really never listened to advice. The girl asked if he also wanted to become her pet and saw the dragon attacking her immediately. The dragon ripped off the bronze dragon's arm, much to the delight of Sumayan and Selena, but the demon was furious because the dragon was courting death. She declared she wanted obedient pets, especially the ugly ones, who should immediately submit to her will. Suddenly, the dragon found himself unable to move. And Sunshine asked the system if there was a way to calm the girl down. The system said the protagonist could form a force contract, but it would require sacrificing a part of his body as a vessel. Sunayan asked how many system points were needed to form the Force Pact, and the system replied that it wasn't expensive. Just 1,000 system points, huh? But once that formation is up, the target has to stay put inside it. If not, the whole thing crashes and those system points are gone for good. Meanwhile, the demon kept hammering on the bronze dragon, who was practically begging for mercy. Selena asked the main guy if they should make a break for it, but when she looked around, Sunayan had vanished, leaving her stunned because he had bolted so fast without even a goodbye. The demon turned around, sensing a surge of heat, and smirked, saying she thought he'd run off after that little incident. She asked if he had really made up his mind to be her pet, and he shot back that the word escape was totally absent from his vocabulary. Selena pointed out that if he was trying to flee, he was definitely heading the wrong way, especially since he ended up getting pinned down by her. He told Della to let him go since he had already freed her. She should take him down herself and handle the situation. Della found it amusing that Sunayan was acting like that, but it was exactly the kind of pride she wanted in the pet she chose. Della sent the bronze dragon flying, and Sun asked if he was all right, to which he replied yes and thanked her for the assist. The main guy said there was no need for thanks and handed over a note just to remind him to pay the ransom properly. When he glanced at it, he saw he had asked for billions in gold coins, enough to make the dragon faint, while the protagonist said it shouldn't be a big deal for him. When he turned around, he spotted Della gearing up to attack, warning him not to get distracted, and she lunged at him while Sunsan dodged by, taking to the air. Selena warned him to watch out behind him, and he noticed Della closing in fast from the rear. The protagonist told the system to summon the contract formation, and the system agreed to his request. Sunayan successfully activated the mandatory contract formation, costing 1,000 system points with a setup time of 10 minutes. All he had to do was keep her trapped in the formation for 10 minutes. So he grabbed Della's whip with his mouth and yanked her down to the ground, pinning her beneath him as Della realized there was a formation right under her. She chuckled and asked if he really thought he could trap her with that, using her powers to shoot a whip at Selena. A snake sprang from the ground to attack her, and Sunayan kept counting down, noting that only 19 seconds were left. Selena was on the ground pleading because she didn't want to bite the dust, just as the system congratulated him for forming the contract. Suddenly, the protagonist grabbed the serpent and hurled it away, saving Selena's life. But in the process, the formation broke apart. What a shame, he was so close to getting what he wanted, but Selena was just relieved he was really there. Her favorability shot up by 80 points, hitting the 3rd stage of favorability, unlocking the special ability Sonic Gas and an extra 5,000 system points. Sunayan took off, telling Selena to find a safe spot and stop crying because he would handle the demon. Selena thought he was pretty awesome. Honestly, there was nothing wrong with humans and dragons teaming up. She agreed to his request before bolting away. She dashed off, wondering if she was actually scared, not realizing she was a little touched by the whole situation. But on her way, she tripped over the Harem skeleton, which had a gold ring on the hand of the wizard who wrote that bloody warning on the stone tablet. Della was surprised. A dragon knew about human contract formations too. Even the simplest formations take time and power, and her current strength was nowhere near enough to make it work. She lunged at the protagonist, saying it would be nice if her pets were super obedient, and since he was being a rebel, he'd have to lose some scales so she could make new skin for her snake. Soon he shrank back, asking her to hold on so they could chat about it, and Della got ready to rip the scales off his body. Then she felt a new power enveloping her. It was the confinement technique of the dead mage, and she recognized it right away. Della was baffled how something like that could show up when 1,000 years ago she had wiped them all out. As he turned around, the protagonist saw it was Selena using the powers through the ring of the deceased mage. She hurriedly told Sunai she couldn't hold on much longer, and Sons shouted for the system to activate the contract formation. The system gives the thumbs up, and our hero manages to kick off the contract formation, costing him 1,000 points, but asking for an extra 10 minutes. Della realizes she's getting roped into the formation again and grumbles because she really didn't want to be stuck in a cage again. The system chimes in, announcing that the capture was a success and the formation is ready to roll. Now he just needs to pick a sacrifice to seal the deal. He's taken aback that a sacrifice is needed, and he wonders if he can just use a piece of his own body instead. He thinks about offering one of his claws, but the system shoots him down, saying a claw is just keratin. Unless he wants to use his whole limb and his dragon horns, it's a no-go. So he decides to go with his left hand, and just like that, the contract is signed. Della is now officially his servant. Selena is over the moon with the protagonist because they pulled off what they needed to do, and she takes off the ring after realizing she forgot something. He asks her what she forgot, and she explains that the ring belonged to the previous necromancer. There's still some residual energy from his body in it, and because of that, she can tap into the necromancer's confinement techniques. Sunayan sees her returning the ring and wonders why she didn't just keep it. He thought she was destined to be a necromancer. Selena clarifies that she took down a strong necromancer's assistant, but that kind of magic isn't her jam. She can't exactly admit it's because she's scared of corpses and the undead that she backed out. At that moment, he realizes he's totally forgotten something. Then he hears Anna showing up and calling out their names. The protagonist is surprised and asks why she's there, and Anna says she heard he was in a jam. So she quickly led the Beast Legion to their location. He asks who spilled the beans, and Anna whispers that it was the other great dragon she met on the way. Sunayan suddenly remembers what he forgot and chats with the other dragon Rolls-Royce about how he still owes him 10 billion gold coins. Royce thinks this is a pretty outrageous demand, but Sunayan responds that it's just how things roll in the Dragon Clan and gives him two options. He can either become his new subordinate, stick around, work off the debt, or he'll just become new materials for Sunayan. He'll strip him down to the last scale and turn it all into gear, take his heart and everything else. Royce is stunned that the protagonist plans to off him just like that, especially since he's a dragon under the Dragon League's protection. If Sunayan takes him out now, he'll be hunted by all the dragons in the Great Dragon League. This is news to the protagonist, who asks what this Dragon League is since he's never heard of it before. Worse explains that there are plenty of dragons, but not nearly enough overall. As time goes on, the dragon birth rate keeps dropping. When Dragon Island was first discovered, there were barely 100 dragons left, and he asks if Sunayan understands what that implies. If this keeps up, dragons could go extinct in the future. Over 1,000 years ago, there were almost 10,000 dragons on that island. Royce reveals that their dragons have incredibly long growth cycles. They usually nap for ages, even if they look ordinary. Their materials are super valuable and rare in the world, but humanity found Dragon Island and decided to wipe them out for riches. They sent people to dig out dragon hearts and chop off their heads to take home as trophies. Dragons are made of top-notch material, so not a scrap of their bodies could go to waste. Royce also witnessed his parents being killed by those same humans, and more dragon slayers kept popping up, shrinking their living space. One by one, Royce's siblings were taken out until he was the last one standing. His mother and father also fell to the hands of dragon slayers. They bought some time and took his siblings to the kingdom of Amleth, but the dragon slayers kept hunting them down, killing his brothers and sisters until he was the only one left and he fled to the Dragon Protection League. The Dragon Protection League was established by an adult Crimson Dragon and an adult Silver Dragon to safeguard the last remaining dragons in the world, no matter if they were metal dragons or five-colored dragons. As long as they played by the rules of the leaves, they could join in and receive his blessing under its protection. Right now, no other five-colored dragon was interested in joining or even bothered to show any enthusiasm, so the order was given to take out those arrogant and foolish dragon slayers who wrecked their homeland and shattered their peace. They fought and napped without a break, and that's why he was giving Neon a heads up about it. If he wanted to take him out, he could expect to be caught by the Dragon Lee and be forced to munch on slugs every single day for his misdeeds. The protagonist thought that couldn't even be considered a threat and pushed Royce to quit his whining. After all, he was still offering him two options: either become his subordinate and follow him, or kick the bucket. So Neon planned to seal his mouth for good, making sure he couldn't talk and forcing him to eat slugs every single day without a break. Royce immediately bowed to become his servant, but the oath had to be made to Mother Tiame of Five Colors and to the god Bahamut, so he wasn't planning on shutting his mouth or making him eat slugs. Neon swore nonetheless, in the name of all. If Royce pledged loyalty to him, he wouldn't seal his mouth or force him to eat slugs. Just like he had said, Royce declared that he was on board with the terms of the contract, and thus he became Sunayan's new subordinate. Later, Sunny soared far away carrying Anna and found in his hand a crack that must have been the signature of the contract he made earlier with Della. The system indicated that for reasons unknown, his exposure had dropped again, which completely caught him off guard. When Anna woke up, she asked if something was wrong, and he replied, "No, I just got bitten by a mosquito." He told her to keep sleeping well, but Anna leaned in and kissed Sunayan on the cheek, surprising him. She chuckled, mentioning that now the mosquito bite wouldn't sting anymore, wishing the dragon goodnight before dozing off again. Sun tried to hold himself back, feeling it was a bummer he couldn't transform into his human form quickly when he wanted to. Back at Sakura Village number 2, Sunayan asked the system if this was really a beginner's village. It looked like a massive city compared to the previous Sakura villages, 1 and 6. And this village was enormous and didn't even compare. The system replied that this happened because the beginner villages near the Silver Moon Forest had been targeted by Sunayan. The one he saw now was the normal development speed for players, which surprised him. It seemed there were more beginner villages like this, or even stronger and more perfect ones, and the system agreed. As planetary settlers, players must first expand their own forces and focus on local construction to protect themselves. In other words, the beginner villages, there were like invasive species without natural enemies in reality. Outside the bushes near Sakura Village 1, Porter returned to report that the ammo was ready. Sume and he pinched their noses from the stench of what Porakuri was holding. It was a newly developed ultra-spicy dung bomb. Its power was 10 times stronger than the common poisonous gas bombs used against enemies. So Nyan thought it was great that he had made progress, but next time he could just get rid of the smell so things wouldn't get so chaotic. The protagonist took off, ordering everyone to attack. All the monsters would launch the ultra-spicy dung bombs at the village. They stormed the village and invaded through the gates, and inside people were running around in shock because the monsters were suddenly invading. The guards didn't understand what was being thrown and wondered if it was poisonous gas. Unable to do anything, they quickly reported to the master. Sunayan told Royce to follow him and breathe dragon breath toward the center of the human village. Royce said it would be a bit messy. Those humans hadn't provoked them, but he still didn't get why they needed to take those people out. If those were the only ones who started the problem, they could take them out and their outrage would be understandable. And Sunayan called him a fool. She questioned whether he even knew why there were fewer and fewer dragons in the world, and Royce asked why, looking puzzled. So she replied that it was obviously because of the humans. They invaded their living space and wrecked the environment. They even took out many of their brothers along the way, snatching dragon hearts, enjoying tiger bones soaked in wine with their meals, and they created more powerful and luxurious gear. If they let those folks go, they'd just bring dragon slayers right back to their lair. They'd flaunt a sack of gold over their dead bodies, celebrating their win like it was just another Tuesday. Royce recalls the gut-wrenching moment he witnessed his hometown's downfall, and a wave of anger washes over him, declaring that they absolutely deserve to meet their end. Sunayan agrees, and as she regains her composure, she urges him to join her in wiping out the human village, leading to an immediate assault on the town. People scatter in panic as 2 dragons swoop in, unleashing fire from every direction. The air is filled with screams as they call on all the mage players to gear up for a counterattack and defend their home. One player reminds everyone to prioritize protecting the warriors first before unleashing their most powerful spells. 2 mages were set to cast spells to slow down the dragons. They rush forward to unleash their magic. The female mages inform the master that those dragons have a serious resistance to elemental magic. The slowing spells won't do much good. The village master is baffled as to why 2 dragons would suddenly launch a surprise attack on an ordinary day. Another player chimes in, mentioning that a few days back, Wally had taken some folks to confront the Black Dragon. They speculated whether that was the Black Dragon returning for revenge. The boy Waldy's son wonders if his father failed in that confrontation. It makes sense why they hadn't heard from his parents since then, but he wasn't going to fret. He'd do everything in his power to ensure his father was avenged. He shouts to the warrior players that the fate of taking down the dragon now rests entirely on their shoulders. He instructs the men to hurl their spears at the dragons in the sky at a 45-degree angle, gearing up for a full-force throw. After a countdown, they launch their spears, but Sunsen uses her ability to disarm them all. The spears plummet, leaving the players in shock at how that was even possible, and the master quickly orders everyone to stack their shields. However, he soon spots players fleeing, pleading for help, trying to save themselves from the rain of spears and fire. There's no time to waste. They need to save themselves before they can fight back, and Royce calls them idiots. He then points out something he discovered. The humans seem to have a knack for surviving even after being attacked. He witnessed a guy he thought he had crushed emerge from a small room shortly after he killed him. So he declares that since he's noticed this, it's time to spill the beans about those humans. That the world they're in now isn't the only one out there. Beyond this realm, there are countless others. And as someone who carries the dragon's legacy, Royce should get that. He's taken aback to learn that those humans might hail from another world. Meanwhile, the mages are battling the flames from the onslaught. One mage tells the young master that those two massive dragons are too strong. They can't take them down. They should make a break for another beginner village. The boy asks if there's another novice village nearby, and the mage replies that there's a faction village not too far from here. Even though it doesn't show up on the map, it must be a hidden gem, and the boy insists they can't waste time. They need to get out of there. She asks about the others in the village, but he shrugs it off, saying it's not like they're going to die for real. As long as they're alive, they'll be okay. They can just rebuild the novice village once the dragons leave. The mage agrees, and the two dash away from the second village as it gets more wrecked by the minute. The boy seethes at the sight and vows to return. The mage urges him to hurry. Their invisibility potion will only last 10 minutes. Later, the protagonist discovers the remnants of the village and tells Royce that as he can see, those humans are not from this world and have come to invade. If the invasion succeeds, their world could be left in a perilous state or even completely obliterated. That's why they need to strike back against the humans. Plus, each of those humans has a class. The way they boost their strength is surprisingly simple. They just need to take down monsters. And Royce realizes that everyone is in serious danger. The protagonist tells him to chill out a bit. Not sure if that guy is really a dragon, given how useless and cowardly he seems. So she's not sure how the other places are holding up, but she knows she needs to rally all the monsters there. So they plan to wipe out the human villages from another realm and construct a monster city for themselves to defend against threats, which was pretty crucial. Royce inquired about the jewels he was holding, and Sunayan explained that they were something special that could aid them in building with unique functions, only attainable by taking down human villages. So she suggested they all band together to fight for that treasure. They would genuinely unite to create a city for monsters and drive off the invaders before they could take anything else from them. Royce declared he was ready to be her follower and swore by the dragon god Bahamut that he would stick by Sunayan until the end. Wherever his dragon breath blew, scorched earth would be left in its wake, and Royce's admiration for him shot up by 300 points. The protagonist mentioned he was looking forward to that day. But before that could happen, everyone needed to hustle and get stronger. The system congratulated him for completely obliterating the novice village. His exposure skyrocketed again, which relieved Naeem. But luckily, a new world boss had shown up, so he didn't have to stress about players hunting him down for the time being. Anna came running in, saying that Pereri had discovered 2 people who had sneaked away, and someone needed to be sent to chase them down immediately. Sunshin told her to hold on a second. He didn't plan to pursue them just yet, but he could send someone to tail them discreetly and see where they were headed. Meanwhile, in Navis Village 34, the players were furious because if it hadn't been for the Black Dragon showing up out of nowhere, they wouldn't be in this mess. Maybe that beauty should be his. But it didn't take long for those same 2 players to witness their village being wrecked by the dragon and Anna. At that moment, one player looked at his leader asking if they were doomed. And he couldn't even believe their village had ended up like this. They saw the monsters attacking and ordered an immediate retreat. But still, the others questioned why they were running when they could just respawn. The leader smacked the player who questioned him, calling him a fool for not reading the latest strategy list that had come out. Some Sakura players starved in a corner of the World Plaza because the respawn time was too long and they had no food or water. That sent the players into a panic and they bolted for their lives. They talked about how Sunayan was the same one who had tossed them into the river not too long ago. Those were the Indian players who had attacked Solastil but were defeated by the Black Dragon, and they still couldn't figure out how their village was found. Just as they were leaving and bickering, Solstyle suddenly popped up to catch them off guard in the middle of their escape. The players grinned because they recognized the girl from before, and she asked where the Black Dragon was. The player didn't understand what was so fascinating about the dragon when it would be way better to join them. Annoyed, she smacked them, and the players begged for mercy while Salisil asked again if they could take her to see Nan. Meanwhile, inside the village, Sunayan was congratulated by the system for destroying yet another novice village and also snagging the core fragment. His exposure shot up again. If he kept demolishing novice villages, he would be marked as a world boss. The system acknowledged that Suni had taken down 2 novice villages in a row and earned 200,000 system points. Finally, he had successfully collected 4 core fragments from the novice village. It wasn't easy walking in circles like that. It was quite the challenge to keep going. They were practically going in circles. But Celestial was thankful for that because she never thought she'd see him again so soon. This wicked dragon was incredibly fierce. It seemed she would need to find the right moment to approach him. Then she decided to approach some players and hide in the woods, then scream for help loud enough for everyone to notice her. Sunny wondered what that noise was and landed just in time for Celisto to yell that the dragon was right above her. He ended up apologizing because it was unintentional, and she replied that it was okay, thinking she was surprised because he was polite. Still, Celisto suspected he was just pretending to apologize. She intended to peel off his hypocritical mask and thanked him for saving her, saying she would follow and serve him. But Tsunune was taken aback because all her stats were unknown. Celisa was thrilled with his reaction, thinking that using her beauty to get close to a dragon was the best plan ever. Gain his trust and then take him out. That would be the ultimate scheme. Yet she was striking poses that left him utterly baffled. He wanted to steer clear of that mysterious creature. But when he turned around, he spotted the players from the neighboring village and realized they were the same troublemakers who had previously harassed the girl. The players quickly threw in the towel. They didn't want to tick him off and offered her up as his meal since she was way more appetizing than they were. Niam was livid, calling them pathetic little bugs. After all, they didn't even give him a chance to negotiate in the first place. They had the audacity to spoil the dragon's taste buds with their filthy bodies as if they were even slightly edible. It was simply unforgivable. The player pleaded with him to hold on. They could offer their treasures. They could also share info that might pique his interest. So Nayan asked what kind of treasures and information they had. He let them speak or they'd be toast. The guy said he was sure the dragon must appreciate delicious food and fine flavors. Each dish from their family went through 1,000 stages of fermentation. It was clean and hygienic, but Sunayan mercilessly burned his curry rice, saying he'd give them 3 seconds to spill everything they knew, otherwise he'd roast them until they were crispy. The player bowed and started talking about the Worm King. It was a monstrous beast that emerged from the Western Sea, wreaking havoc on 4 villages near Anxi, and word had been spreading for a while. They claimed that the Worm Kingdom was assaulting the shores of the Airline Empire, and many other human villages were bound to suffer. The protagonist sighed because their intel was useless. He only wanted to know where the gold and treasures were. If they didn't have anything, he'd have no choice but to incinerate them. The man insisted he knew something, asking him to hang on a sec. Then he told the great dragon that the Stormworm King had been stirring up chaos and luring adventurers through the teleportation matrix to hunt it down. These adventurers came from all over, each boasting extraordinary skills and powerful gear. But compared to Sunsen, that Stormworm King and those adventurers were nothing. He just needed to wait for them to fight it out and then scoop up the spoils. And Sunsean paused to mull that over. The Stormworm King must have been the one marked in the 4 novice villages. One more than before. If it weren't for the system's reminder, he would have been completely wiped out. Now, this player must be marking the world boss. So Neon acknowledged that this was solid info and asked if there was anything else useful to share, to which he replied that there wasn't anything more the great dragon should know, that they had nothing else to offer at the moment, but they could provide more information if it became available in the future. Suddenly, the system issued an alert. It detected that a player had reached level 30. The realism of the world increased, and with that, all players would now experience a 10% increase in pain sensitivity. Sunny didn't get why the player was suddenly screaming and asked if he was trying to hide something. That's when Sunayan also received the notification informing him that players were now feeling increased pain in their bodies, and he realized they could now experience pain when they died as long as players could endure suffering. It was a major setback. It seemed that even more intriguing things could be unlocked in the future, and the player began to stammer. He said he suddenly remembered something, but there was nothing to conceal because he had always been very straightforward. And Sudian agreed that was a good trait. He was a great dragon and would stay true to his word. He wouldn't roast him alive, but he pressed the other 2 players, asking what they thought about it. He only said he wouldn't burn them, but made no promises about other outcomes. Celestial tensed up, witnessing the true nature of the evil dragon being revealed before her eyes. It wasn't long before Anna and Selena showed up, and Celestial was taken aback, not understanding why those 2 girls were by his side. It was clear they were under some sort of hypnosis and needed rescuing. Anna said she felt dirty and wanted to take a bath before heading home. So Nian thought this was indeed a good opportunity and told Anna to inform Poricure so they could get her home right away. But Salicyl hesitated for a moment, asking to be taken with him. She was willing to offer her greatest treasure for that chance. The other girls were fuming, claiming they had been scrubbing the battlefield while he was off charming girls behind their backs. Nayan quickly defended himself, insisting he was being misunderstood and that things weren't as they seemed. He asked the system if there was a way to get rid of Solistyle, and it suggested releasing some sleeping gas. For regular folks, the time it would take them to wake up should be enough for him to get back to the dragon's lair. But the system warned him to be cautious when releasing the gas, and Sunsen just told it to let it out quickly. Suddenly, he realized he had let one rip out of nowhere, and Sunayan asked the system what that was all about. The system explained that since Sunsen didn't have the right glands to release the gas, it had to come out that way. The protagonist was in shock, wondering why it hadn't mentioned that sooner. He felt like he lost all his dragon dignity after that embarrassing moment. The system then asked if he wanted to use 4 novice village core fragments to create a main village construction order. If he did, once he got the main village construction order, he would have the power to set up a novice village. So Nayan went ahead with the synthesis, successfully completing it, and the system congratulated him on obtaining the novice monster village core. Now, it asked him to pick the type of novice village, presenting several options. The first was the primary fortress, the second was the primary dragon's nest, and the third was the primary dungeon. Nayan remarked that the dungeon didn't sound too appealing. Putting in all that effort just to go in and out of the dungeon felt like a waste of time, and not seeing the sun every day could be a real issue. Their immunity could drop and they might end up getting sick. The system told the protagonist he could build a teleportation matrix inside the dungeon, allowing him and his monsters to come and go with ease as long as he paid system points to set it up. Plus, the dungeon wouldn't be completely dark. A sunlight mirror could collect simulated sunlight for them to use. So Nayan decided to build a dungeon, and the system asked him to choose an entrance. He suggested placing it inside his dragon's nest. If any player or hero attacked, he could handle them directly. When a massive tremor shook the lair, Anna got worried and asked Sunsen if it was an earthquake and if they should find somewhere to take cover. Sunsen replied that there was no need to hide. This was their new home, just undergoing some renovations. Anna questioned if he was really going to forget about their old home. They should just find somewhere else to hide. Soon, Nayan got a notification that the dungeon construction was finished. He could now teleport all the monsters inside, and he agreed to the teleportation. At that moment, everyone was teleported into the dungeon, confused about what was happening and if it was some sort of attack. Nayan appeared in this dungeon, and the system announced that this would be the palace where the dungeon lord resides. While in the palace, Nayan's overall stats would increase by 50%, and there were also some functions available. The first function was Palace Guard. When his guard was within 500 meters of the King's Hall, their overall stats would increase by 20%. Anna and Roy had functions that hadn't been unlocked yet. Upgrading to the second level, Dark King's Palace would require 100,000 system points and also 8 core fragments from novice villages, or even 2 fragments from novice cities. The protagonist paused to think about the palace guards. They resembled the elite chief guardians found in other common dungeons. Nayan asked the system why he could only appoint those 2 as palace guards and not other monsters. The system explained that the life levels of the other monsters hadn't reached the minimum requirements to become palace guards, but Nayan couldn't arrange for other monsters if he wanted to add more, so he decided to temporarily assign palace guard duty to Royce. Royce felt confused by what happened because he suddenly sensed a great power within him and wondered if he was about to evolve or something. After a moment, the protagonist reconsidered because that guy didn't seem very trustworthy and decided to put it on the back burner for now. He could check out other parts of the dungeon first and inspect Evolutionary. The protagonist reconsidered because that guy didn't seem very trustworthy and decided to put it on the back burner for now. He could check out other parts of the dungeon first and inspect Evolutionary. The level 1 goblin nest. The goblins would crank up their production efficiency by 100%. The maturation period would be boosted by 50%, and the combat power of newborns would rise by 20%. The level 1 cobalt nest also saw a 20% increase in production efficiency and a 20% decrease in maturation time. The combat power of newly hatched cobalts would also get that same 20% boost. And then there was the level 1 water nest where the bird demons' production efficiency shot up by 50%. The maturation period got slashed by 100%, and the combat power of newborn bird demons increased by 20%. These seemed like just nests for different monsters. Nothing out of the ordinary. They could whip up combat power in no time. Then there was the dreaded black prison where monsters trapped inside would suffer constant mental anguish and pain, with the pain level ramping up by 5% every day. There was also the level 1 rebirth pool where the host could spend system points to bring back common monsters, and the level 1 dark wheat field where the harvest maturation speed would double. The dark underground river provided a steady supply of cold underground water that could be drunk straight away. Sunayan thought the painful black prison, the rebirth pool, and the dark wheat field were way more impressive than that dragon nest from earlier. He was glad he picked the basic dragon nest. Based on the system's usual behavior, most of the basic nest functions were designed to cater to dragons. There was also a chance to boost dragon pregnancies and improve the survival rate of dragon eggs. The system detected that Sunayan had set up his own monster gathering site, and the coordinates of this spot could be kept hidden. He could keep it under wraps for 1 week, after which the location would show up on every player's map. So Neon wondered what kind of system this was, because earlier when he mentioned wanting to take care of Navice village, it kept shutting him down. That was because it would mark him as a world boss. Now that he had finally built the underground city, it was trying to expose him. If it was going to be revealed in 7 days, there wouldn't be much difference from becoming a world boss anyway. The system replied that it was unavoidable since the novice village core fragments were after all products of the rules. But once the dungeon was exposed, Sunayan wouldn't be marked as a world boss, nor would a teleportation matrix be unlocked. He would also gain new resources. Despite his irritation, he paused when he heard about the new resources and asked what that meant. Was it possible that a black dragon like him was just meant to be endlessly farmed by players and locals? He decided to keep the dungeon hidden and tackle things one day at a time. He didn't want to be constantly bothered by those guys. The system acknowledged that the dungeon would be kept hidden. It detected that there were currently 5 arrow towers not placed inside the dungeon and asked whether they should be moved. Sunayan pondered what to do and inquired about the teleportation matrix that was promised. The system stated that to build a teleportation matrix, 20,000 points were needed, and the current dungeon level could only create a one-way teleportation matrix. It asked if it should build one now, and Sunayan commanded it to build one right away and take all his points at once. Still fuming about everything, meanwhile, Anna and Selena were strolling together, and Selena jumped when she thought she saw a ghost, but Anna reassured her it was just a shadow. Meanwhile, the protagonist noticed the system indicating that in the Shadow Labyrinth, magical creatures get a boost in their combat effectiveness by 10%. Plus, they gain an invisibility status when they're just chilling. Sunayan tells Porikuri to slide over to the corner and hold down the fort without moving a muscle. Once that was settled, Porikuri vanishes, leaving Selena wide-eyed and stunned at the sudden turn of events. Anna remarks that it's pretty weird how he just up and disappeared even though he was right there. Down in the underground labyrinth, the protagonist explains that it's totally normal for that to happen. It's how they stay off the radar. This is one of the special perks of the Shadow Labyrinth. Any monster that hangs out there for 5 seconds becomes invisible and undetectable. Porikuri is blown away by this new, powerful feature of the labyrinth and starts brainstorming some fresh ideas. They could set up traps in the Shadow Labyrinth and have some monsters keep watch. This way, they could fend off a ton of enemies using just the Dark Labyrinth. Sunayan feels like a true strategist, and the protagonist agrees it's a solid plan, deciding to let him handle it. Plus, he could move the potatoes to the dark wheat field and instruct the human soldiers to get to work on them. He could take the unruly prisoners to the dreaded black prison. They should be locked up for 10 days, and then they would figure out what to do with them. And Porikuri is on board with his orders. Sunayan mentions that after trading for the golden fruit, he should set aside 5,000 system points to create the most cost-effective and powerful enhancement plan for himself, one that could boost his strength even more. The system responds that based on solidification, it would provide the best enhancement plan tailored to Sunayan's current abilities and physical needs. It suggested advanced muscle enhancement, which cost 10,000 points, and beginner swarm willpower, which costs 100,000 points, along with the golden fruit, which also costs 100,000 points. After reserving 5,000 system points, Sunayan currently had 44,995 system points left. Sunayan mentions he's about to evolve, and Anna asks if it's really happening that fast. Still, she reassures him that everything will be alright this time. She promises to protect him and tells him to sleep soundly without a care. He says he doesn't need to sleep for evolution, but it could be a long and somewhat intense process, so Nian suggests she head to the other side first. He worries he might scare Anna if she sees it. However, Anna refuses. She insists on staying right there and has no plans to leave. They say dragon evolution can be pretty dangerous and accidents can happen. That's why Anna promises she'll keep Sunayan safe. In that case, he thanks her and asks her to stay close. But while evolving, something scary might happen. She should keep her distance because he's worried about hurting her. Anna agrees and steps back, and Sunayan tells the system to get started. So the system informs the protagonist that the enhancement will be extensive. It could involve multiple organs throughout the body and would come with intense pain. To prevent any mishaps, the system would seal his vocal cords and immobilize his limbs. The transformation would begin immediately and tells him to brace himself. Sunayan froze at the mention of immobilizing his limbs. He realizes that his limbs are starting to stop moving and he collapses to the ground, causing concern for Anna. He's in a lot of pain and asks if the system couldn't just knock him out to make it stop. The system agrees, but it would cost 1,000 system points, and Sunayan consents since it could be seen as anesthesia. Finally, he drifts off to sleep, and a moment later he wakes up, unable to believe he spent 1,000 points just to blink. The system tells him not to panic, as an external force is what jolted him awake. It was Anna's powers. She was using healing magic, and he mentally wants her to stop, but he can't make any sounds. Suddenly, Sunayan realizes he's in a place surrounded by several white threads and tries to touch them, asking what they are. When he touches one, he hears the thoughts of a kobold who is thrilled because he gets to eat potatoes that day. He's ecstatic because it's thanks to Sunsin that they can enjoy delicious food. All he can think about are the potatoes for the day. Now he understands that this particular thread is connected to the consciousness of that guard. The system says he's established a connection with an affiliated unit and can link with up to 999 more. To connect with more units, he can keep upgrading the will of the swarm. Now he has a clearer picture of the situation. There's only that many, so he needs to be cautious and use it solely to contact the elite. Sunayan asks the system where poor Corey's well lion is. And at that moment, he catches a glimpse of his thoughts about him and a cobalt girl. But just then, taking consciousness inside Poricor's body, he sees her lean in to kiss him and recoils in shock. That feeling didn't seem right at all. It looked like the will of the swarm didn't just let him hear the thoughts and ideas of those monsters, but it could also infiltrate his will and control his body. And the system states that Porikuri was also added to the line. He inherited about 0. Just 1% of his traits came from the bloodline concentration, granting him the inherited skill of iron armor. It's surprising how they all seem to power up in an instant. As the dragon's transformation intensified, so did the concentration. While there was a cap on this enhancement, the good news was that he no longer needed to use heart blood on Pori and other dependents. Moving on to the next ones, he connected with the fire rabbit, Hana, the jackal, and a few others. A bunch of monsters were linked up. Eventually, Sunsayan woke up much to Anna's relief, but he quickly noticed she was drained from using so much healing magic. The protagonist had also depleted his own magic and couldn't help her at that moment, so he suggested she take some time to rest alone. Della's favorability suddenly shot up by 20 points, leaving Sunsin completely baffled by what had just occurred. He asked why that happened, and the system explained that as suns advanced, his bond with her evolved along with her body. He had no idea that would happen. It felt like Della had put a spell on him in that way, and he wondered if it could be dangerous. The system reassured him that as long as the contract was active, there was no danger. Theoretically, it would only end when Sunsin kicked the bucket. This irritated him because it felt like a curse until death, but now he could move on to the final stage. Besides Anna, Royce hadn't received the inheritance yet. Being a dragon, he needed to choose the type of ability he wanted to inherit. Meanwhile, Royce was busy chatting away with his new human buddy. He was the first to hear everything Royce had to say. All the stories began with a bronze dragon, and the human kept wishing someone would just shut him up because he didn't even want to listen. Royce got annoyed because when someone tells a story, basic respect means looking him in the eye. That's when Sunayan showed up, and Royce was thrilled he had time to come over, but suddenly got startled by Sunayan's stronger aura. The protagonist felt that after that transformation and the previous massacre of 2 novice villages, his level had reached 38. He figured he would hit the young dragon stage after just 3 more levels. He was 1 step closer to shapeshifting, and then he could be with Anna again. Changing the subject, Sunshin coughed and said he was there to get Royce to make a choice. He touched the connection thread with Royce, who was confused about what those things were, but they were all new abilities. He asked him to pick what he wanted, and the system reminded Sunayan to be cautious because Royce was a pure-blood dragon. While he could inherit abilities, the effects would be significantly weaker and improvements limited. Royce mentioned he already had iron armor as a dragon. As for Dragon Breath, his Sleep Breath and Linear Breath, one for control and the other for attack, were pretty practical, so he didn't see the need to change any of them. He decided to boost his muscle strength among all the options. He could get stronger, and he wasn't saying he wanted to be as big and strong as a mountain, but even a third of that would be great. Royce chose his power and evolved, feeling like his strength had practically doubled because of it. He thought if a thunder giant stood in front of him, he'd be confident enough to take it on in a fistfight. Sunayan replied that it really wasn't bad. He was now one of the main combat forces in his dungeon. He hoped Royce would keep pushing himself, stay disciplined, and design his house. Then he walked away. Still, Royce couldn't understand why he left without even asking what a thunder giant was. But the protagonist brushed him off, thinking it was a good thing he left when he did. If he had stayed longer, Royce's endless chatter would have wasted even more of his time. At least his level went up, so he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. Now, it was better to head back and check on how Anna was doing. Meanwhile, in the palace of Onless, the king was feeling all anxious. It had been a while, but he still hadn't heard anything more about the Black Dragon. The envoy would soon return, asking for more people after all. The queen sighed and smacked the king, telling him to chill out, which left him a bit stunned. So she decided to ask him more gently to calm down. She put up notices all across the nation calling for brave warriors willing to take up their swords against the dragon. She proclaimed that defeating the wicked dragon would rescue the princess. The triumphant heroes would get to marry the princess and score some serious riches and status. The king was a bit confused since they didn't have a princess to offer for marriage. The queen reminded him about that half-demon girl he had purchased. He should have the slave contract for the girl named Anna, and he even had her picture because it was clear she was a real stunner. The king was thrilled because it was a genius idea to offer Anna as if she were a princess in marriage. Still, the king pointed out that she was half-beast sporting fox ears and a tail, to which the queen replied that it would be a piece of cake. They could hire someone to redraw the portrait covering up her fox ears and tail. The king wondered what would happen if the dragon slayer discovered she was someone else, and she said it wouldn't matter. After all, the palace was their turf. Once the hero returned to the capital, whether he brought the girl back alive or dead wouldn't matter, as long as he didn't dare challenge the palace. This way, they had 100 ways to deal with anyone who tried to oppose them. Meanwhile, Anna was still catching some Z's. She woke up when she felt a lick and asked it to stop because it would make her fur all soggy. But when she looked, it wasn't the dragon. It was a giant sheep, and she screamed, wondering if it had transformed into another creature. Suddenly, Sunayan popped up, thrilled that she was awake, and Anna realized it had all been a dream. She nearly had a heart attack. Still, if it was a sheep, it was pretty adorable, and the protagonist himself was confused, wondering if she was calling him cute. Act like a sheep. At that, Anna felt embarrassed, because suddenly Sin could hear her thoughts, and he told her it was a skill he picked up after evolving. Anna asked if that meant she couldn't think privately in front of Nayan anymore, and he chuckled, telling her to spill her thoughts. Anna complained that if he kept eavesdropping on her thoughts, it would just make her mad. Suddenly, the system warned that humans were getting really close to his territory. There were 2 choices: let nature take its course, which might keep the players from finding the dungeon entrance, or abandon the attack. The second choice was to lead the players into the dungeon, but that would put it at risk, and he needed to be aware of all that. So Nan was stunned that people had arrived so fast. His dungeon was so vast and beautifully constructed that it ended up like this. If he were the only one to enjoy it, it would feel a bit lonely. He had to let the players have some fun too. He got pumped and ordered to guide the players in. He hoisted Anna onto his back, and she asked where they were headed now. He replied that they had guests, so it was time to welcome them. Meanwhile, the players were outside, wondering if they were almost there. The men reassured their leader not to worry, claiming they could take down the dragon with one shot. The black dragon was the same type they had faced before, but it wasn't a walk in the park, so everyone needed to be super careful. This was because Waldoy had some reckless and clueless guys who made a huge mess the last time they battled the dragon. Those were all elite players that the new leader had meticulously chosen. Not only were they high-level warriors, but they also wielded firearms. A person approached saying they hadn't spotted a single monster on the way and didn't even know if they were in the right spot. The one who spoke was a stunning girl who left the leader quite taken aback. He realized she wasn't a player and asked her identity and why she was with her team. She introduced herself as Freya. She was on the lookout for a hero who was about to become a star magi. She knew he must have come there because of King Amlos's notice to slay a black dragon and save the princess. Freya thought they could all join forces and work together. One of the players immediately started to object, but the leader stopped him, saying it was only right for a beautiful woman to show strength. Otherwise, it would be too little for him. At that, Freya asked if they had even noticed her presence. If that proved anything to begin with, suddenly she pulled out a whistle and blew it, instantly attracting a monster that began to charge at them. Without hesitation, the player fired at the creature, but Freya shouted for him to hold up since it was her pet. She was taken aback, though, because the gunfire was so powerful it took the monster out in one shot. The players were intrigued by her claim that the monster was her pet and wondered if that meant it wasn't really dead. Freya explained that she was just concerned it might get seriously hurt if they weren't careful, but thankfully it was the kind of creature that could heal itself. Suddenly, the creature sprang back to life after Freya used a potion, and the human leader welcomed her to their team. Meanwhile, Sunsei was just sitting back grinning when he suddenly teleported a piece of paper right into the leader's face. The system chimed in, saying that legend has it, there's a massive dungeon hidden in the Silver Moon Forest. It's a dark, mysterious place where all sorts of monstrous creatures lurk. Only the bravest warriors could venture in and snag the endless treasures inside. Clearly, this was an invitation for the group of players to take on the Shadow Dungeon, and they were itching for a challenge. The player leader was taken aback, but finally understood why they hadn't encountered a single monster on their journey so far. They had all been hiding out in the dungeon the entire time, and the thought of infinite treasure made the whole thing even more enticing. It was a tempting call to adventure. Freya walked over, curious about what he was holding, and the player freaked out, ripping the paper to shreds and letting it flutter away. He insisted it was just some useless junk and told everyone to focus. The monsters had all packed up and moved into the dungeon, and they should seize the moment to launch a surprise attack. Anna was stunned, realizing they were genuinely planning to ambush them in there, and the army hadn't done anything wrong but would still end up as casualties because of it. So she asked him to be a bit kinder, even tugging on his scales in the process, and Anna chuckled, apologizing. She got a little annoyed, but promised to be more careful next time. He mentioned he didn't plan on going out, then called over the rabbit leader and the jackal, instructing them to grab their flaming rabbits and weapons to follow him into the labyrinth. He needed to set up some defensive strategies and also called for some allies to join them. The more monsters they could gather for the battle, the better. Soon they summoned several monsters into the labyrinth, and the protagonist tried to chat with the great wolf leader, asking if he understood the concept of ferocity. It was the first time he'd seen creatures so ugly in his life. But none of the great wolves seemed to respond to his questions. These monsters were considered skilled, even if they couldn't fight fully. Maybe they could still intimidate the players somehow. So Neon informed them that in the labyrinth, if they stayed completely still and out of sight, they could become invisible and undetectable. In that state, humans would have a tough time spotting them. Their mission was to intercept and take out any players that showed up inside the labyrinth. Over the last 8 days, they had set traps in those areas, and if they couldn't win, they should just run for their lives. Sudan didn't want to see any of them sacrificing themselves for such a cause, and all the wolfmen nodded in agreement before moving on. But suddenly, the protagonist told Anna to stop. She, disguised as a wolfman, halted right in the middle of the army. She laughed, realizing she had been spotted even though she thought she was being sneaky, and the protagonist replied that he wasn't blind. Neon then told her to go back because she couldn't enter the battlefield, and she complained that she was strong enough to fight now. She could protect the 2 dragons. Anna tried to persuade the protagonist that she could handle it, even making an adorable face, but he turned her down again, saying it was too risky given their bond. Anna had become much bolder and more cheerful than before. Sunayan needed to be cautious. He might be witnessing her true nature coming to light. Then Anna pointed out the middle of the wolfman, asking if Selena could join. That's when they noticed Seluna was also in the army, disguised and ready for battle. Stan pulled her out as she kept begging to be allowed to go too. They both wanted to help in the upcoming fight and now understood who Anna had learned to disobey from. But the reality was both wanted to pitch in, and now the protagonist would have to deal with them and convince them otherwise. So that's a wrap for this video. If you want to catch the next episode, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time on Tubbs Music.